Before this episode of Revenge of the Sequel, the podcast just about sequels, I just want to give a quick shout out to our patrons, our new patrons on Patreon. I'm talking about Danny, Diana, Eric, Jennifer, Sarah, and Z-Man. That's interesting. Thank you so much for supporting the pod. And if you want to get a shout out on our podcast, go to patreon.com/DelphinPod, DelfinPod. There are exclusive episodes there, some games that we play. There's an Aladdin episode, Detective Pikachu episode, and it'll be the first place we release new shows and new episodes of stuff. So patreon.com/DelfinPod. We'll see you inside there.
Yeah, get it, Z-Man.
Story didn't end there.
How could there have been only one? And he's back in business.
Is the worst idea in the history of bad ideas.
Part 2 is the final chapter in the violent history.
This time, it's personal.
Our world is changing. The mass extinction we feared has already begun, and we are the cause. We are the infection. But like all living organisms, the Earth unleashed a fever to fight this infection. Its original and rightful rulers, the Titans. For thousands of years, these creatures have remained in hiding around the world. And unless all the Titans are found, our planet will perish, and so will we. They are the only guarantee that life will carry on.
Sorry, but this is the only way.
You're a monster. I'm sorry.
Long live the king.
If you like snow, rain, wind, darkness, 13 from Stranger Things, Tywin from Game of Thrones, kaijus, mammoths, rain, orcas, the Boston Red Sox, CGI screens, twins, rain, a bomb exploding in your face, Atlantis, and finally, if you like rain, then you'll like the movie we're about to talk about. This week we're talking Godzilla, King of Monsters.
Her name's 11.
King of the Monsters.
Shit, why did I write 13?
Yeah, 13. That's pretty funny.
Unlucky for some.
She's 2 seasons older now, so
Yeah,
I added
very
it.
true. You're welcome.
My name's Emmanuel.
I'm Andrew.
Hey, I'm John.
Andrew's back in the studio,
Yeah,
baby.
there's a return to the RTS. Technically, you're a guest.
I know,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
I picked up my 12th job, which means I only have 2 hours per day at every job.
12? Wait, hold on. Let's see. Are you
24 hours.
Wait, are you a hooker? Because you can't count
I said
every...
12 jobs.
That's what I'm saying, like a day.
I would need more than 2 hours.
Okay. Nobody needs longer than 2 hours. Nobody. If this is your very first episode of Revenge of the Sequel, we talk about sequels. Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Man, that's where it ends.
welcome.
So you're just
And that's it, baby. This is a really good sequel this week because this is technically the 35th Godzilla movie, I think. Isn't that
Is
right?
this really? Man, hold on. Let me do some research on that.
And
real
so
quick.
if we... it's actually mathematically impossible that we haven't talked about Godzilla yet.
It's actually really cool. Yeah, because like I think everyone here, or at least I am, I think Drew and I are huge Godzilla fans.
I hate it.
Huge.
I'm just kidding.
I've watched the movie since I was a kid. I think the first movie I've ever seen from them, and then it branched off from there, was Godzilla versus Megalon.
Yeah.
It's this very comedic.
Classic. That's
very
the one where Godzilla drop kicks.
Yeah, it's based. Yeah, coincidentally,
everyone knows which one that one is.
Yeah, it's the one where Godzilla drop kicks. And we thought, as a kid, we thought that was normal. Like, you look at Godzilla, landing that drop kick.
You know what's so funny is I remember the way my mom used to get a hold of these VHS tapes.
It's true because they were foreign films, really.
Yeah, exactly. So she used to go to the dollar store or the flea markets, and she would find them, and they'd be like, "Hey, $1, $2," and she'd be like, "Hell yeah, the kids would love this." And then she'd buy them, that's how we ended up watching them, and we're like, "This is the best! This is freaking awesome!"
Well, so while we're talking about just Godzilla in general and our introduction into Godzilla, which actually has a really good fandom as well. Godzilla has been around forever
since 1954.
Longest franchise, film franchise in history. No, it beats out James Bond.
It's a cultural.
It's like Doctor Who.
It's been around forever, and it's a known thing. But I kind of had a similar thing. I wasn't allowed to watch Godzilla because it was too violent. But every time I slept over at my friend's house, his mom also had these VHS tapes, and we would watch a shit ton of them, pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
And then we ended up playing. I don't know if you guys ever had a GameCube.
Final War or Destroy All Monsters.
That was a sick ass game.
Destroy All Monsters Melee.
That was it was like a Mortal Kombat
with
kind
Godzilla,
of,
right?
Yeah, with Godzilla. I love that game.
And you just crushed people while you fight in these cities.
I always played Mothra, and then who's the one who has drills as hands and a head?
That's Megalon.
Oh, yeah,
Megalon,
shit. We just talked about it. I always played him.
Yeah.
And then the only other real time. So before we get to the modern Godzilla, there was a channel on TV that just constantly played Godzilla. I think they were trying to be like no, that's interesting. A double dub of a movie. But yeah, so I would watch those, and then of course I love Gareth Edwards. I think when one of my very first podcasts ever in 2010 in my dorm room, the first episode was about Gareth Edwards because I just saw Monsters at South by Southwest, and I was like, man, this guy's making Godzilla. So I was definitely into it, but it's crazy. And we're drinking juice packs right now. You guys are sleeping over, and my mom says it's okay that you guys can stay the night.
You got a Godzilla onesie on right now.
I know, we're regressing. We're becoming kitties again.
Yeah, it was really cool because I think in watching those old Godzilla tapes, I think after that, our second one, I remember remembering watching Godzilla versus the Sea Monster as the second movie that we watched, and then after that, we just kept renting. If we didn't have them, my mom didn't buy them for us. We would rent them from good old Hollywood Video.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember,
R.I.P.
There was other ones like Godzilla versus Biollante that we watched.
Godzilla
versus
Hedorah.
Godzilla versus Hedorah versus Destroya.
And then there was a Mothra Batra one where they had the huge bat.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of like Mothra's opposite.
I remember that.
Yeah, Batra. And then
what was it? Didn't we create one? Didn't we create a Godzilla robot, or maybe it was from space?
Mecha Godzilla.
Did he come from space?
No, there was a Space Godzilla also.
Okay,
so there's a Mecha Godzilla and a Space Godzilla.
And then there's Godzilla 2000.
Yeah. Well, that's just a separate franchise. The thing is, and then so all that Godzilla stuff, we thought it was really cool. We had little toys and stuff in the 90s growing up, and then that 1998 movie hit, and I was. As a kid, right now it's very laughable.
It's like episode 1, Phantom Menace type of it's just more of nostalgia, I think now.
We're 8 years, or I was 8 years old.
Well, and the marketing was really good for that movie. They didn't show you anything, so you were like, oh man, it's gonna look awesome. So
and it's New York, and it's a CG one. It's supposed to be big budget.
Yeah, it's the Hollywood treatment. They were like, okay, Godzilla's finally gonna get the Hollywood
treatment
of.
This was kind of almost before the online age, so you couldn't see anything. The only way you could see something about it was to go watch it.
And it was interesting because I remember it's all about New York. First of all, it has really good New York actors too, and it's
really goofy.
Yeah, and
it's almost as goofy as this one.
And you have this grand scale thing. But do you remember the babies in Madison Square Garden? I think that's who it was.
Yeah.
This is a whole other. This is Alien now. You've got little baby Godzillas, and then it ends with an egg, doesn't it?
It hatches.
Hey.
Yeah, and then it's there's a
sequel.
Yeah.
Squeakle.
We'll see you in 1999. But it is kind of a crazy cultural phenomenon for it to have lasted this long.
Yeah, he's it's iconic. Everyone recognizes Godzilla. Even people who don't watch Godzilla movies recognize what the icon or that monster looks like.
Yeah, he's in The Simpsons. Remember at one point?
Yeah,
also? Boom.
But Godzilla started as a reaction to. And this is what's really, we'll talk about this movie in a bit, but it's kind of the opposite of what Godzilla is in this movie. But Godzilla is a reaction to
the nuclear bomb.
These bombs.
Yeah, atomic bomb.
And it kind of displayed the destruction of these bombs. And
he was kind of like the cause, like, the consequence for creating something
like
that.
Nature,
using that.
Nature is firing back for man creating something so destructive. That was the basis of the original Gojira film, which is, basically like... because they even tried to use like atomic bombs on him in the original movie, and he's unkillable. So it's like, nothing stops this monster that basically like rose from the depths because we woke it up with like a giant bomb. And it's got a bunch of like very that original movie has like imagery and stuff that parallels what Japan was going through at the time, like from its reconstruction of like right after being basically bombed. So it's
literally less than a decade before movie. Like it was a very recent thing.
It's when you watch it, it's very heavy satire. Like I mean, now it's aged remarkably well, but when you do watch it, it is very much a product of its time, and you can feel the like the political themes kind of like oozing out of it, and it's kind of like it's a very heavy, it's probably the only like artsy Godzilla movie out there, other than I guess Shin Godzilla,
which was kind of like an update for that, kind of almost like a critique on today's world. Not so much like the nuclear bomb or anything like that. On just how we handle natural disaster in general.
It has to go through different like
chains of command, and before we can even act, by the time we act, it's already too late type thing.
Yeah,
like it's already gone through so many checks and balances, and we've talked about it so much, and by the time we get there, it's already all done.
And it's kind of a well, that's always the thing. Is like Godzilla is a metaphor for something, and even a lot of the later movies, like the ones in the 60s and 70s, he was still each monster was meant something. Like they came from somewhere, and they were reacting to something.
Sort of, yeah.
The last thing I'll say about the original Godzilla, it came out in America in 1956. It was reshot with Raymond Burr.
It's called Godzilla King of the Monsters.
That's probably the one that we saw was honestly the American version of it, because I remember someone speaking in American lines, but they reshot his scenes interacting with like body doubles.
It's really funny.
Cut it back in
because he's kind of always looking at Godzilla, like with a microphone.
Yeah,
like he's talking over.
The dubbing is weird, and you're like, whoa, like, I don't think that's what that guy said. Yeah. But it also cuts to like legit scenes from the original.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's kind of a crazy path for this movie, and that's why like Shin Godzilla. Well, yeah, I mean we can talk about what this movie is and what we think maybe the themes of this movie are.
So well let's go right into it. Yeah. This movie is a sequel to the 2014 Godzilla, which I think me and Drew were talking about it because we watched the 2014 one shortly before watching the King of the Monsters, and it's really funny because there's two Godzilla franchises within its own within itself.
Yeah,
there is a very serious human-oriented Godzilla movie, which is like you only get it from I think Godzilla Returns, or no, you get it from Gojira. Excuse me. That one always goes by Gojira to me because like that's the original one. So it goes.
That's not how you say it. I'm just kidding.
So Gojira. And then it goes. Godzilla Returns, I think in the 80s, is another like artsy movie before he starts fighting people again.
Yeah.
And then Shin Godzilla is kind of like another human-oriented, very hard drama with like kaiju action happening. Then there's the other Godzilla, like the other
kicking Godzilla.
Yeah, there's Fight Godzilla, which because after a while, which you said like every monster, they're rooted in these other like things that happen like from the atomic bomb, but really at the end of the day, it's more of the same. Because like
it's a guy in a suit. It's like the Power Ranger.
Because Godzilla, exactly. Godzilla's movies were cheap to produce. Like I think there was one a year, and I think at one point you can just you can go online and look at some of the monsters that he fought, like maybe some of the lesser known ones. All it is really like another Godzilla suit with things taped on, like almost like glued onto it. So you get very I guess what I'm trying to say is like the original one is usually very serious, and then everything that follows afterwards is kind of silly. And Godzilla King of the Monsters definitely kind of follows in those footsteps because the first one is very serious. There's no soundtrack. There's no Blue Oyster Cult's Godzilla song doesn't play in that movie ever.
It was definitely a much simpler. Oh man, I don't want to say simpler because it's very complex. Like there's a lot that happens.
Right.
But it was. I think I heard someone describe it as Gareth Edwards' Godzilla was a Godzilla movie. If you were looking out of your office window, like if you were looking out and be like, oh shit, there's Godzilla. Like that was always the deal with that movie.
It's from our perspective because I mean, if you saw that, you'd run. Like you wouldn't stay there and watch, and that's why that was a big issue I think when it first came out that everyone was like, "There's not enough Godzilla in it." But yeah, it's just trying to get you. I mean, that's why they kill off the mom in 2014's Godzilla. Spoiler alert! In the first 5 minutes, because they're trying to get you to care. And it's Bryan Cranston, so you're like, damn, Bryan Cranston's super likable.
It was just
so
right
he's
after
really the
Breaking
anchoring
Bad.
port. So if you the anchor in general, just because if you care about him, then it'll work for you. But I mean, it's tough.
Watching Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah, a little bit for sure.
Well,
shots fired. John said
I really liked the scale that Gareth Edwards brought to it.
You were hugely influenced by that Godzilla movie.
It was
right?
like
oh yeah, because a part of the, and I think I was telling you
it's
about
like
this.
Spielbergian, almost in a way.
Yeah, and this movie kind of attempts at that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah.
I'm talking about Chandler's character.
Kyle Chandler, yeah.
Like, I think they were trying to make it like a Spielberg hero kind of type thing,
but it ended
like
up being
flawed.
It ended up being more Independence Day than
now
like,
he's in a
really
Kong and a Godzilla movie.
Is he really?
Kyle Chandler was in King.
Yes,
Peter Jackson's
the Peter
King
Jackson.
Kong.
I was like, I think of Kong Skull Island. I was like, oh no, they screwed up.
No.
But yeah, so before we wrap up on Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, but yeah, I feel like there is also a big part of it to me that I didn't mind not seeing Godzilla too often.
I didn't either
because it's
pretty cool.
I think I send you like the
Alien,
slow burn type
Jaws.
there's a shit ton
like Close Encounters.
Exorcist, even like these slow burn monster movies where you get glimpses of this creature from a different perspective, and when you see it at the end, like it is just way more powerful. I mean, I barely took one breath at the end of Godzilla when he finally fights both of them at the same time, and you think he's dead. You were just like, this is crazy. This is like nothing I've seen before. And there is a risk in a movie if you see that often that by the end of it you're like, well, that was just another fight that I saw.
Right.
But I mean, these are different directors, and I think I listened to. We're going to talk about Doherty later on, but I listened to like 4 hours of him today because I was just driving around and listening to how he thought and his ideas. And he had this really great point that early on when he was making movies, he was like, because we hear it all the time, like the studio's ruining
Stop
the movie.
vaping.
I know.
No,
He's sucking a Capri Sun. But when early on, and we kind of have this idea too that like studios ruin movies. Like, I don't know. It's like this overall thing, like, oh, studios like they put too many notes and they ruin movies.
I mean, yeah, it's not. I don't think it's ever their intention to ruin a movie.
And and that was his big point. He was like, no one ever wants to make a bad movie. They don't want to make a bad movie. But they definitely did talk about that criticism that we're talking about, where they didn't see Godzilla enough. Like, it was part of the conversation of making this movie.
It's almost a reaction to what you saw like before. Almost like kind of like the way those
course correction.
Yeah, I was just going to reference DC, like their movies. It's kind of like the way they do with their movies. Like each movie influences the next one.
Yeah,
so like if someone doesn't like this one, they obviously they always course correct to, well, here's this, and then they're like, well, why the hell did you do that?
And we could talk about behind the scenes in a bit, but Mike Doherty said that while he was starting to make this movie, him and the crew were in this weird spot where they're like, well, if Kong Skull Island doesn't do well, this isn't gonna happen. Like, all this work that they were doing was going to be like shelved, or they're going to say, oh, we'll push it back. And he knew what that was like. But before we talk about this movie in detail and the behind the scenes stuff, what were your impressions of Godzilla,
King of the
Monsters?
So first impressions, wow. I think that was just it. Like, I think when I walked out, I just said, wow. It was it's a very loud. It's a very loud. I think I explained it to you via text message afterwards, like
via sext message.
Via sext message. I had it.
4 dicks in a row.
Yeah,
he hated it.
4 dicks up.
I had it like branded on my chest that said sensory overload. So yeah, it definitely goes into sensory overload. Like, I feel like the most of the movie and the appeal of this movie is the monster fights, because you go and actually watch a Godzilla movie.
Long
for that.
live the king. We're doing some of the one-liners from this movie.
Yeah, that's the actual dialogue.
Gojira.
I thought it was very fun. There was, I mean, obviously, I kept cringing during some of the human scenes because you just can't help it. Like the humor feels like something out of a Michael Bay film that doesn't like kind of land most of the time, like 80% of the time.
Well, it's partially because this whole movie is set to be a dark, ominous, brooding thing, and then they write like a
yeah, like something to like kind of kick it up.
Yeah, I laughed at a couple.
The actual,
me too. Yeah,
people were like, "Why are you laughing?" I was like, "You don't see it?
He's funny."
The actual like, but it was like very. I mean, as a Godzilla fan, I think if I wasn't a Godzilla fan, I probably definitely wouldn't have enjoyed it. That's the whole thing. It's because like the movie is a mess. There's no getting around it. Like it is. I think Drew described it as like the BVS of kaiju movies because like it has like it's so ambitious. And it's got like, you know, a giant cast, and it tries to be very complex, even though it doesn't really need to be. And it doesn't really stick the landing when it comes to that. But the visuals are striking. Like, you know, every time Mothra is on screen, it's like amazing.
To me, that's enough to let this franchise continue. Go ahead, carry on.
But it is like it's very enjoyable. But like I wasn't expecting parts of this movie, and I don't know exactly how to articulate which parts like were unexpecting to me. I guess it's just the bad dialogue or something. That's what I'm kind of leaning to.
Or blowing up a bomb in Godzilla's face.
In Godzilla's face, yeah, exactly.
Destroying that's just rude.
I was got mad because they they fucked his home up.
Yeah, exactly. They just destroyed like ruins,
how the
like
fuck
crazy.
is he gonna go back to heal?
And they were talking about like, wow, these are really important. We found the city.
This is the one before like the Egyptians.
We
and then
finally found it.
I think it's Atlantis. Bombed this shit.
I know. Fuck it. We took pictures.
Send one man in there.
It was fun though. I mean,
it was like Randy Quaid.
At first glance,
oh yeah, Freddy's in that movie.
I've only seen it once. I want to see how it holds up on a second viewing. But it was it's a really fun movie, and I think it's a very enjoyable blockbuster. Like it's kind of like what the Transformers movies want to be, if that makes any sense. That being said, I don't know if that's just because I like Godzilla or not. Maybe this is the same thing as a Transformers movie to somebody else.
I thought it was pretty cool to see kind of like I told John, I said this 2014 and this other King of Monsters it always felt like a American knockoff of Godzilla.
Yeah,
but it's a pretty good knockoff. Like I think it's really cool. On like this is the most accurate representation of what these things would do in a realistic world. Because I meant like Japan,
the monsters, right? Not the humans.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, the humans. Like, there's no such thing as the. Like, I'm sure they are, but like, I would have been like, these are a bunch of fucking weirdos.
And also, kind of pointless that we were even there. Like,
and like all like. Every single time someone was on screen, they were telling you what they were doing or what they're about to do.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, Godzilla's suddenly swimming like east, and they're like, "Oh, start a prediction model. He's gonna end up in L.A." And we're like, "What the fuck? How did you know that?"
And
like,
we'll talk about it.
It came out of nowhere. Like, and it's Kyle Chandler. Like, usually he's like, you know
where he's going. That was one of his dialogue. He always said, "He's like, I know where he's going."
He's the hero, and he somehow has this like.
Well, and
empathic communication with knowing what Godzilla is going to do.
Had just told me, they're like, I like Kyle Chandler because he usually is like the muscle and like the hero and stuff. I was like, in this one, he's like the brains. Like, he knows why Godzilla is. Like, he knew every single motivation for him.
For someone who hates Godzilla,
he knows
too,
like,
right? Like, legit
hates
Godzilla, knows every single thing he's going to do, and also stops him from being killed like multiple times.
Yeah, he like I don't know, like that.
But there's also not even a payoff where he's like, "Oh, I understand Godzilla." That doesn't happen.
It's not.
He may still hate him at the end.
It
of
ends
the movie.
abruptly, actually. But where are you thinking to go on with your impressions?
Yeah, no, I would say again, like the most accurate like representation of what these creatures could do. Yeah, visually in like today's world, which is fucking terrifying. When like Rodan is like flying through Mexico and like destroying the city with,
and he's
his
not even
wings.
trying.
Yeah, exactly. So you're just like, holy shit. Like, I think in that sense. So one of my friends is actually in Japan for his honeymoon, and I told him, I said, go to a theater and watch it. It's going to be the premiere, and you can watch a premiere of a Godzilla movie in Japan and kind of get to see their reaction, because I want to see their reaction, you know, the people who grew up with this even more so than us, you know, and because, you know, it's very different to go from a guy in a suit or go from like little models like Shin Godzilla to something that's like, whoa, like IMAX, like shaking your seat, like this is incredible, like this is the first of its kind, like in that, you know, in Godzilla history or whatever. And I mean, they've tried some CGI in some of the other Godzilla movies at some point, but it, you know, it always had some kind of cheese.
It's got to be a guy in a suit.
Yeah, sure, yeah, exactly. So I think that's what's really cool about this movie is like sometimes when Mothra would show up in the sequence, I was like, this is so fucking like pretty. Like you can turn this into a poster and just you know, frame it on the wall or whatever. But yeah, I thought that's what I really enjoyed about it is just being able to kind of relive the childhood and see them at like their prime.
Yeah.
The best they're ever going to look, I think, in general. I mean, and who knows, maybe Toho will kind of send a retort with this, because I remember when they made this 2014 Godzilla, they're like, it's the biggest Godzilla ever. And then Toho released Shin Godzilla, and they're like, he's 2 feet bigger. And you're like, what? Okay. So maybe they'll come up with something that will even blow our minds even more.
A fourth head on
yeah.
I kind of like that, though, that Toho kind of reacts to America. Like
no.
Because Toho's like, we do it best.
Well, because
you're going
to get compared to the one that came before, American or Toho or whatever, you know?
Well, Toho knows what the
Legendary
movie's
Toho,
about.
Yeah.
Like, you know, does that kind of make sense? Like,
maybe more so than ours is an interpretation.
Yeah.
Sure. Really.
Sure. Yeah.
Because Toho is actually, because you get Godzilla with Gareth Edwards' movie, which is not a bad movie. It's actually, I mean, it's pretty good.
That one looks good too.
Yeah, it's a good. But then you get like, you know, because Toho saw that and the world's reaction to that, they make Shin Godzilla, which Godzilla, that's still like, it's probably like one of the best, probably the best Godzilla.
It's like a mix of the realism of our movies and then like the original Godzilla movies.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
exactly.
In between like being too.
That one's awesome.
Focused.
Super scary movie.
It's
got one of the most epic, like probably the most epic Godzilla scene in history. Even more so than this King of Monsters.
Ooh. So for me, I have these 2 questions coming out of the movie theater. What is this? I'm just kidding. No. So for me, I was like, okay.
Oh wait. Well, this isn't a spoiler.
Yeah.
This is a spoiler.
Oh, this is full of spoilers.
Well, it's full of spoilers, but like also like the stuff we did talk about right now too is all in the trailer, so we're really not spoiling it for you anyway.
Spoilers deep.
All right, so yeah, I guess we haven't spoiled anything yet.
Maybe we can now.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, so I had these 2 questions in my head, and they have very different answers. The first is, was this movie worth the ticket price? Probably. Like it delivers on visuals. It delivers on these really big climactic moments. Bar the again, we talk about how kind of cheesy the dialogue is, and
very.
It's weirdly non-intentional. But yeah, so I think it's definitely worth the ticket price. It's still worth it to go see on a really, really big screen with people. But is it a good movie? Is it a great movie? No. Is it a good movie? Probably not.
Yeah.
But it is a movie that is still very entertaining. And it's kind of this weird thing. Like,
it is weird.
We're focusing a lot on like what makes a movie great and good, but it's still good to watch it. Like, it's worth what you pay for.
If it's entertaining, it did its job.
Yeah.
Like, if it entertained you or just one person. But, I mean, you look at like Rotten Tomatoes, you know, blew it to smithereens or whatever. But you look at the user score, it's got a 90%. People had a lot of fun at the
I love that they're that this movie is writing that user score, because like they keep showing it and flaunting it. Like, fans love like Godzilla,
and
then it's just like,
well, that's what's crazy is like that's the opinion that matters. Like, if you're gonna win them over first.
I think the big part though that is going to be difficult is the thing that you guys kind of brought up. It's fantastic for Godzilla fans, like the little things. And Doherty, the director, is a Godzilla fan. He put.
This movie is all references.
You could look up a list of Easter eggs. There's an insane amount of Easter eggs in this movie.
Scene.
But to
the point sometimes where they don't make sense. Like, you're just kind of like, what the fuck? Like,
by the way,
you just threw it in there.
By the way, we're twins. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
By the way, Venom is in there.
So it's kind of insane. Like, it's great for us to see. But I'll give an example of a movie that treads that line. Detective Pikachu. You could know like Pokemon. Watch it now. Same guy, right?
Yeah.
You can watch Detective Pikachu and love Pokemon and love the movie, but you can also go and not know anything about Pokemon and still probably enjoy the film.
Right.
This movie will be very difficult, I think, for someone going in who doesn't care that much about Godzilla movies, because there are movies out there like Pacific Rim where you can see the spectacle, and
they don't cut away. They still cut away in this one.
And I feel like the humans are still, because he tried to keep that Gareth Edwards part of it, which was the things are only happening when the human characters are around. Like, we don't cut to something really far away happening on its own. We're always seeing it from a human's point of view. Even if they're just sending 2 little soldiers there, or one person somewhere.
That's what was so smart about the orca, where it's just like they will literally come to you.
Oh yeah,
like, and fight in front of you.
So he kept that part of it.
Is that smart though? Or is that a cop out though?
Well,
it's just kind of weird.
That's what I'm saying. Is like that for this purpose of like a Godzilla movie, where it's like, hey, we need all these monsters to clash, and like it's such a big planet.
Yeah,
you know. So like, why wouldn't Mohtra be off in like the fucking Amazon?
They're all here at Fenway Park, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's
Boston.
We're gonna talk about the orca because there's some shit going on with that.
MacGuffin is
but yeah, so I just felt like they were moving the characters the only point of the characters was to either advance the plot, give context to the movie, or explain the world that they've made.
Yeah, that's all the dialogue is here. I think there's some attempted moments at some family stuff, like with Vera Farmiga, Kyle Chandler, and Millie Bobby Brown's character. For the life of me, I have the summary right here in front of me. So I can't remember their names for the life of me. Just they didn't leave that much of an impression.
Yeah, and we could probably go down the whole cast. Yeah, we can do it all together now. It's up to you later.
I knew who Ghidorah was, though.
Because this cast was pretty damn good and big.
For a fucking movie about, like, 4 monsters,
there was almost too many people. Like, I was like, man, cut a couple people out.
You didn't have to hire everyone.
There were so many people. Like, I think, did you guys notice that, like, some people would finish each other's sentences? Like...
Godzilla.
Characters like pop in and out. Like at one point, I think Thomas Middleditch is talking, and then it cuts to the same, like it's the same scene, and then like an army general is talking, and then after that, someone else is like saying the same thing. Yeah. And I was like, did you guys all plan this presentation like uniformly? It's kind of weird. Like,
and I think I texted this to you. Was this movie really didn't trust the audience as much? Like they really wanted to tell you what's happening, to the point of I think of one specific moment where something was explained 3 times. So the first thing they were trying to find, I think King Ghidorah or Monster Zero, which is also a reference to real. Like that's what I'm saying. Like these are it's fun for Godzilla fans.
I think it was
people
like
would just be like,
Monster Zero.
Why are you changing the name in the middle of this movie? So when they were tracking Monster Zero, and they're like, oh, there's 4 people say he's going to Mexico, and then there's a computer screen that shows him and the big Mexico, and then it cuts to Mexico with title cards that say Mexico.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this one thing was explained with 3 different devices with 4 different people, and this isn't the only time that this happens.
No, not at all.
They explained the orca a million times. Yeah. They explain everything a million times, and there's no rest in this movie because at the end credits you're also being like thrown a shit ton of shit.
So there's a lot of traveling. It reminded me of Rampage, where they're just like it's like a world tour. There's like
Rampage.
It's literally like all of these cities, and they're like, hey, this is where they're gonna go. He's gonna free every single fucking Muto or whatever the fuck. But at some points, even Kyle Chandler's saying like when they're traveling, he goes, "We're here," and I was like, why couldn't you show like a shot of them arriving instead of him going like, you know, we made it.
We just got here.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, fuck. Like, they're even explaining when they're there.
We're here now.
No title cards. Like, fuck the title cards. Just say that we're there.
It's kind of this, I mean, and it's sort of becomes this, like, procedural kind of TV show in a way where everyone has a job and they're like, you tell us about the tech. You tell us about the sound or the sound wave thing. You tell us about the traveling. You tell us about the history, you know, and you just keep whispering Godzilla every 5 minutes. When everyone asks a question, like, what's that rumbling? What's that noise? Just whisper Godzilla. Like, it becomes that at some point, but just with really good actors, too, with fantastic actors.
It's insane. Yeah, you got Sally Hawkins. Let's run down the cast list here.
Because even the B act, even the low-level soldier actors are from... like Hamilton, like they're fucking
like straight out of Compton.
Yeah,
like it's just
like it's crazy motherfucker's name, Ice Cube.
Whitford, Bradley Whitford's name from West Wing and Get Out. It's like a scientist.
He's the comic relief in this movie. Everything he says is a joke and a one-liner. Like everything
he plays his character from West Wing, like this snarky, like you know,
Billy Madison.
I think that's it. Yeah, he's from Billy Madison too. So we got Kyle Chandler as Mark Russell, which is like kind of. I wouldn't say I guess he's sort of the lead character.
No one knows who the lead is.
You know what's weird? Is that, like, to me, I see him as much more of, like, a supporting actor. So it was kind of weird to see him in this one. Because I know in Friday Night Lights, he was kind of like the lead.
Clear Eyes, Full Hearts.
But to me...
Can't lose.
Night.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Was he in Super 8 or no?
He was in Super 8.
Right?
He was the dad in Super 8.
He's a good...
There's Kaiju in Super 8. Yeah. Is Super 8 a Kaiju movie?
True.
That's his 3rd Kaiju movie. Is he in Pacific Rim?
Kaijus.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, and also in Friday Night Lights, those were big football players. But you're right,
The Blind Side.
Kyle Chandler, he's a great actor. He plays really dramatic roles. And I always feel like he seems like a good guy to me. And in this movie, he's flawed somehow because he used to drink. Is that like
he flat out just says he used to drink? He's like, I wasn't there for her because I drank, and I was like, this is so fucking dramatic.
And they're not divorced, right? They're still married. Is that the?
I have no fucking clue. That's the whole thing.
And like the daughter wants to go with him, which is crazy because he's a drunk.
That was a confusing moment for me too.
I was like, I guess the drinking wasn't that bad.
He's a drunk who photographs wolves.
Like, and because he studies.
That was weird.
He studies, and for me, like, why are we even studying wolves anymore when we know they're kaijus in the world. Like, what the fuck? Those are all gonna die. Why are we still studying little animals? This doesn't even matter. Like, those are like ants to these kaijus. Yeah. But it is kind of an insane thing because if he is truly the main character of this movie, we saw him like 30 minutes, like a while into this movie. Yeah. Like, we saw Vera. Well, we'll talk about her a little bit, but I don't know if he's the main character or if he's the hero.
I mean, yeah, I really don't know. It's kind of weird because, like, I guess he might be.
Too many people.
There's a lot of people, but like, okay, so let's go down the next one. I mean, the jury's out, and I guess you guys will let us know too because it's
Maybe we'll think of it as you go down. We're like, oh wait, you know what? That's the main character.
Yeah, Vera Farmiga plays his wife Emma Russell, which is an ex-wife. They so this couple basically lost a son in the 2014
named Andrew
during the 2014 Godzilla attacks, which they call it, like, the 2014 attacks.
It starts like BVS 2, where it's like Batman in the Superman rubble, and they're looking at it.
Right.
2014 Godzilla.
It's kind of like Endgamey, like you're dealing with the aftermath of this
giant thing. Yeah,
that shot of Godzilla though was fucking epic.
So Vera Farmiga plays the wife, ex-wife, Emma Russell. She goes through the movie basically. She's kind of morally ambiguous at the beginning, even though you kind of know like she's bad.
Yeah, it's like a Die Hard plot where it's like, haha, I was the villain the whole time, but it's not very like.
She teams up with some eco-terrorists basically, and
but I also don't buy her as a total villain. Like, you're nice, you're a good girl.
She's also because she plays the way the role is played. It's kind of weird. Again, like you don't know if these people are really trying or really not trying.
Yeah. I heard a review that said Kyle Chandler was phoning it in this movie.
I will believe it. Like he was obviously not as emotive as like Super 8. Like that's the most broken we've seen him as a character. Like
Wolf of Wall Street.
Even Wolf of Wall Street. Like he's kind
of. Did we say Friday Night Lights already?
Yeah,
the TV show, not the movie.
But Vera Farmiga, I mean, I don't want to. She's okay, I guess, in whatever she does. She spouts, I think, some very ridiculous dialogue, like everybody does. But it's weird seeing her. Because like she has like this very serious stoic face to her.
I just didn't know which side are you really on? I don't believe like any one of your and it's any one of the sides you're pushing.
And I think she's written to be ambiguous, but towards the end you still aren't sure.
Yeah,
because it is. Because one of the biggest plot points in the movie is we find out that we think she's being kidnapped, but she's actually not. She wanted to join up with these eco-terrorists.
Yeah.
And her motives are to, I don't know.
Yeah,
like I get
it's restore balance or whatever.
Yeah, but it's also
very contradictory in the sense because
she's like the radiation that the kaijus leave grow everything at 10 times the speed of whatever. And
we can talk a little bit while we're talking about her because her whole thing is she created the Orca, which is a MacGuffin. It's a plot device because it's basically like the hot potato. Like wherever it is, wherever you use it, it's where they come, and also you can control
some kaiju.
Yeah. And this is one of my biggest things with this plot device is we see it being controlled controlling things multiple times, but it never actually amounts to much because I feel like King Ghidorah just also controls them, right?
Yeah.
And no one ever really controls him that long, and it's kind of a weird thing. Like I would understand if maybe this machine everyone thought was this thing that was going to control all the kaiju, but at some point maybe they try to control Godzilla, and Godzilla's like,
they
no,
fight for him,
like you can't control me, or like there's something this interesting thing that happens with that technology, but it just is not. It's just literally a thing.
Yeah, I think the more we talk about the actual plot and what's going on, the more it falls apart.
It's a really cool idea. Though, I will say.
See, like it's ambitious. Like that's an awesome idea. I mean, the execution is kind of weird. Anyway, let's move down. Let's move down the line. Because we got a lot of cast here.
Yeah. Oh, this is the whole podcast.
Millie Bobbie Brown in her first movie, big screen role. Millie Bobbie Brown, 11, aka 13, like the way Delphin said at the beginning of this podcast.
+2, baby.
She plays Madison Russell, who is the the daughter of Emma and Mark. How
do you guys think she did in this movie? Her first movie, Millie Bobbie, MBB.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I was like, it didn't really leave much of an. I think she.
I think she does. She does a lot of what 11 does, which is look mad and then just scream and cry.
So here, I'll give you guys a cool blowjob.
Oh fuck!
I'll give you guys a cool. So when Michael Dougherty was doing previs, which this may make this whole thing make sense to you, but pre-visualization and pre-production of what it was going to look like happened at the same time that the story was being written, which means the script wasn't done before they started planning the fights already.
They're planning the that's mostly what happens in big budget movies.
Yeah.
They usually plan the story around these big, like, hey, look, we started developing these effects a year ago.
This would be cool to see. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And so during previs, they're like, well, what do you want her character to look like? I forgot her character's name.
Yeah, I did too. Madison.
So, and then Michael Dougherty's like, well, just use 11, 13 from Stranger Things as the reference point. And then after they did all the previs, because Legendary wouldn't greenlight it without the previs to show that he knows what he was doing, he was like, well, why don't we just ask her? Like, she's already the reference for the character. Why don't we just ask her to be in the movie? And of course she said yes. She's like, fantastic, I can make $1 billion or whatever.
Yeah.
And then this was where...
Ooh, spoilers.
This is actually going to tie into a lot of the success or not success of the movie was because Millie Bobbie Brown is technically the most valuable actor in this movie. This sounds insane, but she has 20 million followers or something insane.
Definitely. Yeah, this is she was a selling point, huge selling point.
She was all of the marketing for the movie. So even if you look at if you watch the trailers for this movie, Millie Bobbie Brown, it opens with her a lot. And she's in it quite a bit for who her character is. And the numbers are starting to come out for the box office of this movie. A quarter of this movie is people under the age of 17. Like the direct market for
Stranger
Things and Millie Bobbie Brown, which is okay, but that means that's an insane amount of people that aren't old enough to to
even know what's going on. Yeah, exactly.
To be watching this movie. So it was crazy that they cast her, but it was ultimately a really smart thing to be like, hey, maybe we can have Godzilla reach out to
11,
to younger kids.
Yeah, Walter White couldn't get it done, so now bring in 11.
I will say, if we're talking about how she does compared to the rest of the actors, she does pretty good.
She's. I think she has a really good career ahead of her. Like I think she. This is probably the jumping off point. She will be in Godzilla vs. Kong next year.
Really?
They're
Godzilla v Kong.
Kyle Chandler, I feel like are back for that too.
Oh my god!
Along with Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson.
We'll talk about that towards the very end though.
And then the after credits.
Sam Jackson.
I have some gripes with that one, but Millie Bobbie Brown, I think, was she doesn't really do much for the movie. She's kind of just a presence there. She kind of like reacts to all the action for the longest time until the third act. The third act, she actually does something. She actually does something. Because, like I said, the rest of the movie, she's just kind of standing around.
Yeah, and she's supposed to play kind of conflicted, I think, between her parents.
Like she doesn't know who to choose, whether her mom or her dad.
She recorded an episode for this podcast that never aired, Millie Bobbie Brown. Did I tell you about this?
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah.
You did tell me that. Yeah.
Sophia got all the Stranger Kids to do a thing, but then they couldn't because of
Netflix.
We're going to release it anyway.
Yeah, whatever, fuck it.
If you play the trailer over this podcast, you may get sued by like Legendary and shit. Just play Claire de la Lune, like that song that plays over the trailer.
Did I tell you we got a copyright strike?
Yes, you told me that on the last episode.
I was like, fuck, now I'm scared. Because I think you only get 2 or 3 on YouTube and then...
Oh, YouTube? Oh, fuck off. Like, just like...
oh, fuck YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm scared.
Damn, John.
Anyway, in this fucking movie.
So let's go down. Triggered because of YouTube. So Bradley Whitford is Dr. Rick Stanton.
Emmy Award-winning... he's done so much good stuff.
No fucking way. I'm just reading this now. I'm not sure if Wikipedia is right on this, but like Dr. Rick Stanton. What does that sound like to you?
Andrew Stanton?
No, Rick Stanton. Oh. Michael Dougherty verified that Stanton is based and modeled off after Rick Sanchez from Rick and Morty.
Oh, that's really fun, actually.
Bradley Whitmore.
I don't know. Godzilla, Morty, or Rick. Fuck.
Yeah, see, Dougherty had the character drink a lot to keep the character in line with Rick Sanchez.
He just wanted to drink.
Did he drink in this movie?
Yes, he had a flask. I will say this about him, and they go over this so quickly in the movie, but one of the reasons why Godzilla can travel back and forth so quickly is because of this whole hollow Earth theory, because he's a hollow earther, and they talk about it like
there's a tunnel
twice, and then that's it. And I'm like, this guy just like found something earth-shattering, and we're not even going to worry about it.
Yeah, because they're like, we're 600 miles away from this, and he's like, what?
That's so crazy that like
did we just travel through a portal?
I didn't know that was based off of Rick's, and now it makes a whole lot of sense.
He's funny.
I will say this: Bradley Whitmore, like he's got the most cringiest lines in the movie. That being said, the actor himself, when you're seeing him play it, looks like he's having the time of his life.
Oh yeah,
like he actually looks like he's having fun.
Yeah. You're in a room with these fantastic actors and just
and then he's just kind of so riffing. So like it's really funny. He's got the worst dialogue, but he's actually like the screen presence that he says it. You just kind of have to admire that.
So as we go through some of this, some of the rest of this cast, one of the things that was really interesting about this movie, and I know we feel like they're just going from place to place and watching what Godzilla does. the majority of this movie took place in a soundstage in Georgia, and then they sent other crews to film the parts that were in different places. So they literally had to find and make basically the shield jet that would travel around, like the control room and the submarine, so that all these actors can do all their lines in one place and just green screen everything around it. And that's why this movie feels like, they're just watching things, because that's what it is.
Because they are.
Oh, definitely,
and that's what they wrote, and that's what they were filming. I'm like, we can just get everyone together for a week.
The funny thing is, like, this is in itself, that itself is a reference of like classic Godzilla movies where Godzilla fights other people, because
we in control room.
They are in a control room.
All those, like, the cast is basically like either it's a military force that's reacting or like, striking Godzilla.
Scientists.
Or it's a bunch of scientists like talking together in a room, watching a screen, being like, "Oh, Godzilla's gonna do this," and like that's in itself is a reference to like old Godzilla movies. So like, it's kind of weird. We're gonna go down the list a little bit quicker now because there's so many.
Go,
people.
Go. We'll stop at each one.
You got Sally Hawkins returning as Dr. Vivian Graham.
She's Shape of Water.
Shape of Water. Post Shape of Water. Sally Hawkins.
She can talk. I didn't know that.
She meets a
She bangs it out with Abe Sapien.
She meets a very quick death that I was actually kind of confused.
That death was
first time.
Ghidorah accidentally farts and she just disappears.
Well, you're right, because her death is supposed to be this big turning point for one person.
But you don't know. You don't know what happened until the next scene.
Yeah.
Like they actually show you that it says deceased
in
case you missed
like
it.
the snapping. Like,
in case you missed
like
it,
in the Avengers.
she actually died.
That's
the last
another example of them
showing you.
We didn't, and then someone else is reading an obituary. Like it's like 10 times. They're beating it over your head. Simple things like she died.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And then later on, they make jokes too. Not jokes, but like, "Oh, she really liked when you did that." Like,
it's
we get
weird.
it.
We already
She's
forgot
dead.
about her because like there was like 30 other people that we just went through.
Yeah.
Again, for a large cast, a lot of these people don't die, which is really funny.
I thought Thomas Middleditch's character was going to die.
Me too. I thought like at least these soldier people were gonna like bite it because like.
But it's even worse for his character. He just stops getting lines.
Damn.
Charles Dance plays Colonel Alan Jonah. Charles Dance is Tywin Lannister, as you know from Game of Thrones.
Fantastic actor.
He's basically just Tywin in this.
Oh, and he's really good. And he's got this kind of eco-terrorist vibe that he had. I'm just kidding.
You can tell he's a very classically trained actor. The guy's just like oozes screen presence. It's so weird. Like, even the dialogue that he's given with, it's still pretty awesome.
Scar, right? Yeah. I listened to a podcast, like 2-hour podcast of just him as the actor. He said, they asked him, what was the closest thing to watching a Godzilla movie when you were a kid? And he was like, I remember going in line to watch a Creature from the Black Lagoon in a Saturday morning, whatever. And I was like, oh. He also said on the pod he didn't like the way Game of Thrones ended.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was like, damn.
They asked him.
That's why you weren't on the show anymore.
And I was like, well.
That's why you got killed on the shitter.
2 years out, baby.
You got Thomas Middleditch as Dr. Richard Hendricks. No, as Dr. Sam Coleman.
And is it not true, but they had Verizon on set?
Did they really?
I'm just kidding.
Oh, shit. I was like, for real. I bet.
Can you imagine?
That would have been fucking awesome.
I wouldn't put that above this movie. I was like, at this point, like, shit. Thomas Middleditch is a doctor there, is a scientist dude who kind of gets a few lines.
He's fun. He's a funny guy.
The actor is funny.
Oh, yeah, I'm saying the actor.
Ghidorah, gonorrhea?
Like the stupidest lines.
They give him a really heart-to-heart moment, too, which was against his character with Kyle Chandler in the rain. Like, where are you going now? He's like, what the fuck is this coming
weird.
from?
Yeah.
Are they friends?
What? Like, it's
and
so
then
fucking
back
weird.
then back to gonorrhea jokes.
Yeah, exactly.
You have Aisha Hines as Colonel Diane Foster, basically like the colonel of that little strike force, that Monarch.
She killed them all.
For some reason.
She killed all her men.
An organization that has, you're probably not seeing all of this, but an organization that specializes in experimenting and like discovering giant monsters only has a strike force of like 15 people.
I am really interested because they also set up this thing that they never talk about ever again, which is this Senate hearing between the army and Monarch and deciding what to do. Is she not a part of the military?
I have no fucking clue.
Because then I was like, well, what's the problem?
And then they just walk out and they're like, there's going to be big consequences, and then there's no consequences.
Well, it's because the monsters destroyed DC apparently at one point.
Well, that friction only comes one more time when they send the oxygen bomb, which is another reference.
The oxygen destroyer to 1954's Godzilla.
But after that oxygen bomb, you're like, okay, well, the military, or they're all dead or something.
That oxygen destroyers are really dumb.
This friction was cool friction. I was like, okay, I get it. They're going to like kind of protect them because they're natural. But it just never comes about. Like, it didn't matter. Like, that whole thing didn't matter. Who else is in this movie? There's like 20 more people. 10?
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think we're halfway there.
Yeah.
O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Jackson Barnes, a Oh, he's basically just an officer.
No, tap on his name. Is he not from Hamilton?
O'Shea Jackson Jr. is not
Ice Cube's son.
Ice Cube's son.
Oh shit, never mind.
From straight out of Compton.
Yeah, he's from straight out.
Oh,
of
he's
Compton.
in
Ingrid Goes West.
He's also in Parks and Rec.
O'Shea Jackson?
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, you're talking about that. No, that's Ron Swanson.
What? No, O'Shea Jackson's in Parks and Rec.
Liar.
Yeah, he plays the he plays the animal control person in Parks and Rec.
Okay, and then you have returning from Godzilla 2014 is David Strathairn. Is Admiral William Stenz. You know, the guy who
with the spiky white hair?
The guy who played that dude in Good Night, Good Luck. What the fuck is his name?
Knight. I was kidding.
David Strait.
He was good.
Strathairn. You know him from like Cape Fear and stuff like that. If anyone's seen those movies.
Robert De Niro?
No, the
okay,
guy.
no, I'm just sorry. I'm just fucking.
Ken Watanabe as Dr. Sarazawa.
Probably best actor
who makes
in the movie.
Who is also like linked to Godzilla now, right? He's the only guy that touches Godzilla.
Yep.
He touched him before he committed suicide.
He almost went in his nose.
Suicide
he
bombed
picked his
Godzilla.
nose with his fist.
That was really confusing to me too, to be honest, because he seemed like he didn't have any problem.
He took off his glove. He was like, "Fuck it."
Took off his mask, and also I was really confused about the whole bomb situation just in general, because I thought they were just doing that to wake him up.
No, it was a 5-hour energy.
Oh, okay, that was it.
Basically,
he's good for
Godzilla
5 hours.
style.
But because at that point I thought I was like, did he just kill Godzilla for no reason? And then my little sister was like, no, they're just waking him up, and I was like, with a bomb? And then apparently it's like he's getting energy from it.
Radiation.
Feeds on radiation.
And that's when I was like, oh, okay. And I'm sure they explained it 10 times, but there's so much happening.
Yeah. There is a whole lot of shit happening. Sometimes you do kind of like, you do miss it.
They try to exterminate him in the first one.
You have
exterminate.
And then after that you have Zhang Ziyi, as the twins, Dr. Eileen Chen and Dr. Ling Chen.
And she's in Memoirs of a Geisha. That's like the number one thing I know her from.
She's in a lot of movies. Like that lady
Probably
is
too many movies.
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She looks like she doesn't age at all. Like she's in I think in Rush Hour. Yeah.
She's 80
in Rush Hour.
Memoirs of a Geisha came out in like 2004 or
Rush Hour 2. Yeah, she's in Rush Hour 2. She's House of Flying Daggers. Yeah, she's in a lot of things. She's in the Cloverfield Paradox, which is not a fucking kaiju movie, but it's a sequel.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Who else? There's got to be 10 more people. Come on.
We got some other ones. We have
Give it to me.
Anthony Ramos is the other sergeant with O'Shea Jackson. Anthony Ramos is the guy from Hamilton. He plays the son on the Broadway run of Hamilton.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
He's in Star is Born too, which is insane. That's what I'm saying. Like he's a side character, and he's like
Hamilton.
He's in fucking like Hamilton and A Star is Born, and like he has 2 lines, and he holds a kid in the Mexico.
Holy hell! I didn't notice this though. Hold on, real quick. I'm just
Magical.
confirming something really quickly.
Do you have to call your sources?
No, it's just something that's Corey Hawkins. Do you guys remember a little movie? I guess we glanced over this called Kong Skull Island, which was technically the first sequel to or prequel to Godzilla 2014.
Oh, yeah, I liked it.
Kong Skull Island.
Jordan Vogt
Roberts.
Do you know how old he is? He's only 4 years older than we are.
Yeah, he's that movie.
He's young and sprung.
Just small thing about that movie. I think that movie does the kaiju fights better than any of these movies. Just saying. That being said,
yeah, it was shot in the daytime, which is already a big improvement.
Well, also they actually have scenes like where the monsters fight. Like they don't ever cut away to the humans like the way this one and the 2014 one likes to do. Because that one wasn't like. Would you say that one is from the perspective of humans? Because it's definitely not. Like it's omniscient and it's just like
But I will say this about Kong Skull Island: is it's still
Skunk
Island. It's stunk. No. I will say about that movie is it still had this overall thing that I liked from Garrett's movie was this mystery. Like they were discovering everything in Kong Skull Island,
right? Yeah,
which was cool because it was scary in some way. Like when you had the walking stick monster, you're like fuck, or you had just those crazy monsters, and it was like what was it like? They were in gas, and so they had to light a fire. Like it was just fucking insane. And this movie doesn't have any real mystery at all.
No, not
it's
at all.
like, oh, what's happening? He'll tell me. This computer will tell me. This guy will tell me.
Even some of the big action pieces, like you saw them in the trailer.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you recognize? I'm showing Andrew because Andrew will probably immediately recognize that guy was in Kong Skull Island. His name is Corey Hawkins. He plays a guy named Houston Brooks in Godzilla 2014, or no, in this one, King of the Monsters. Joe Morton, who you know him as Silas Stone, as from Justice League. You also know him as Miles Dyson from Terminator 2. He plays an older version of that character from Skull Island. Like Joe Morton.
I didn't even know that. What?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that either. I just literally looked it down.
Pretty awesome. It's the dude from 24.
Yeah, so Joe Morton plays an older version of a character that appeared in Kong Skull Island. I'm pretty sure that went over everyone's heads because we're just discovering it right now.
I thought that
he's like in the middle of the cast list that we're going through.
Well, I thought that was interesting that he was in the movie like that
at all.
Joe Morton always plays. Doesn't that guy always play a scientist? He's always playing a scientist.
They're just like, you look smart.
Anthony Ramos is in it. Yeah, you're right. Jonathan Howard, Elizabeth Ludlow. There's a lot of people. Actually, right now we're at the very end now. So, and then we're gonna get into like the
real characters, which are the kaiju. Which
we'll talk about and then we have exactly. So, like the 2014 Godzilla, you sat through this entire podcast, and now we're getting to the monsters themselves.
Finally, it's time to talk about this. So, this is really interesting. Some behind the scenes stuff. When Doherty was starting writing this movie, Toho and Legendary had already. I was going to say something way worse than Toho, but
Tahoe. Like a Chevy Tahoe. Don't say it.
Okay. I'll fucking say it.
John, are you challenging me? I'll fucking say it right now.
I don't fucking care. But so Toho and Legendary had already been in talks for Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan.
Yeah, because they're Toho.
They're like, monsters, hey, well, just so you know, we already have the rights to this. Because they sat down with Doherty and they were like, hey, just so you know, in this lunch meeting, he talks about all the time this lunch meeting that he had with the Legendary exec, and they were like, well, it doesn't look like Gareth Edwards is coming back. He's still working on Rogue One. And the guy was like, okay, I'll fucking do it. Like Doherty was like, yeah, let's fucking make this thing because he loves Godzilla. And they basically told him these are the three things we already have. And as they were writing, they basically already had drawn out this movie is visually stunning, but those moments that are like standstill, like Rodan over the volcano, like things like that. Mothra in the clouds, things through the snow. But all those sequences were already painted and drawn out, and they wrote around, like we talked about, those big sequences.
Right. Uh-huh.
But let's talk about those three. They're like this is like the Avengers of
kaijus. Yeah.
Toho monsters.
It really is, and it's kind of weird. Kind of like you were talking about Batman v Superman. Like there was there's no real lead up to these four coming together. It was like, hey. They're all here now, baby.
Yeah. Even the other monsters are like, fuck these other monsters. That big ass mammoth that you saw, fuck that one.
And they didn't even care. That crab thing with the, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was very quickly like these are just the best of them. Here they are.
They totally are. Like Mothra comes from his Rodan was actually a couple of years after the original Gojira. Rodan had his own movie. It was about a pterodactyl that flew out of a volcano.
And Rodan and his mate die in that volcano. I don't know if you remember that from the movie.
Yeah. Do they really?
Yeah, they make a nest in the volcano.
And they just die
and they explode and they die.
So the original Rodan was basically a Toho monster. He's basically a
bird.
Like I said, a pterodactyl that can kind of like use wind from his wings. He would like flap his wings.
Yeah. Which we see in this movie.
Yeah, and then the wind is basically very destructive.
Can you actually see wind?
You can see the effects of it, I guess, in this one. Like it's rendered very well.
But can you see God?
Zilla? Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess so, yeah. The true God.
So Rodan...
Long live the king.
He's in this movie. Mothra has been in her own movie. She was in her own movie in the 60s.
Yeah.
And then was integrated into the
I like
Godzilla
that,
canon.
though.
The twins?
Well, I don't know about the twins. I like that they did have that high vocal thing. Mothra is tons of light around her.
Like a little
like
whistle.
An orca? Okay, no. But yeah, I mean, we can talk about the twins. She normally has these fairy twins that sing.
Yeah, and then like kind of wake her up in the original ones. And this one, they're kind of like
just
they're
happens to be twins.
Like two scientists. Yeah,
that have followed them through the generations.
Seriously, just sets and sets and sets of twins that have this weird connection to Mothra.
It was the best. As soon as it happened, I was like, they're not going to do it, and I saw it, and I was like, this is the best.
Like, I didn't know twins.
So I was like, they weren't going to do it. You're not going to do it.
Like her mom was a set of twins, and the mom. I get it.
See, damn, John fucking gets. You just saw John's epiphany.
I mean, that's just that. I'm not saying
John is simple.
This isn't a positive reaction. This is like way too much. He likes reference.
He's hard.
Well, so what? Let's talk about Mothra Philip before we move on to Monster Zero and Godzilla. But Mothra, what is she's nature? Isn't she queen of the Andals?
The queen of the queen of the Andals.
She's the Unbird.
First of her name.
I know. But she's nature, right? That's what she is.
Mother nature.
Yeah, so she's basically like kind of like this
nurture.
More in tune with the nature than Godzilla is apparently in this movie. She's like basically immortal because like when you kill her, she just gets reborn again.
That was confusing for me a little bit because I understand it from the movies, but if you don't know that, you're just like, did she just explode?
Just die, yeah, like
for no reason.
Yeah,
and yes,
because they do say it in the newspaper clipping at the very end.
It's almost like Obi-Wan.
The newspaper clipping tells you that Mothra
right.
is regenerating somewhere.
It's like Obi-Wan becoming part of
the Mothra is basically like kind of in this one she's billed as, they straight up just tell you Queen of the Monsters, which is kind of weird.
There's never been a Queen of the Monsters.
She defends the Earth too. Like
basically, like she's kind of like very in tune with nature, maybe more so than Godzilla. I feel like it's kind of like an Godzilla's like, if you think about it, like maybe more of a destruction type of being, and Gothra's Gothra. Gothra. I love that. That's
heavy
awesome.
metal mascara.
Mothra's
that's
more,
Batra.
I feel like Mothra is more on the creative side. Like, she's kind of like, maybe she's the one who, like, she goes over. She washes.
She's
over
benevolent. She's pure.
But that part was scary when she was in the fucking caterpillar stage and she started fucking killing everything. I was like, this is fucking scary. This is like Starship Troopers. Like almost.
Yeah,
that
not
fucking
my
big
Mothra.
ass slug.
She has like a kind of the original, in this one it seems like her and Godzilla are straight up allies. The history of the original Toho character is like they're kind of frenemies. Like they fight.
They fight each other.
Yeah.
Well, it's like they fight when no one else is around. Because I remember at one point they teamed up against a monster.
Yeah.
And then like Mothra was they were the only two standing. Like Godzilla already.
He's like, the fuck you looking at?
Yeah. And
hey, fuck you looking at? And then they start fighting.
Yeah. Mothra goes over there and smacks Godzilla. It's funny.
What is her actual? Because I remember she can scream and a beam comes. Is it like a light beam? I guess we can't go into the physics of this because this is kind of all silly, anyways.
Yeah.
The light beam.
What is it? I'm just kidding.
Oh, on this one, like she throws some sort of webbing.
Yeah. Jizz.
Like Andrew was like, she just jizzed Ghidorah to the side of the.
Yeah, she just stuck him.
Do you remember when they see? Oh God.
But
do you remember when they're in the platform? And this is another thing. They either go to where the monsters are or the monsters just come to them. Yeah. When they're in the platform and they see her and she's just light at some point. That brings up this point in this movie that I kind of was okay with. But they kind of tried to hide the monsters. I don't know for visual effects or what. In rain or in snow or in light or in smoke.
Darkness, yeah.
So you couldn't really, I mean, you saw them. You saw the monsters. But it was a very, like, I do some 3D animation. When you want to hide something, you add a motion blur or you make it rain.
Yeah, you add weather.
Or something so that you're like, yeah, it's like people, it's there. You can see it. So it's crazy how often that happens in this movie. That it's such a bad climate all the time.
It's kind of weird though because I think
Ghidorah literally has like a storm around.
Because Ghidorah, Ghidorah could do that. I think in the original movies too.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not to this extent because the original ones were people in suits. But Ghidorah's like the mythology of it is Ghidorah can create like hurricanes and like because he's an alien.
Let's talk about Ghidorah. Yeah, next is he's not from Earth, so there's a natural order.
Monster Zero,
where we've got Godzilla and Mothra,
the tippity top.
But here's Ghidorah who can regenerate his fucking head.
That's different. Yeah. It's kind of like a Hydra.
Yeah. I was like, oh, he killed one of them.
Hydra. Cut off one head,
he's
two more will take its place.
Sure, there's like a shield ship.
This is all told to you too. It's not really shown.
Oh no,
which is like really dumb. Like they've kind of like one character magically says, "Well, I've done thousands of years of research, and She doesn't.
You're not even 1,000 years old.
She's.
Does Godzilla say that?
She says this in the middle of the movie, like as in like she was probably withholding information like the entire time because apparently she knew this like
the whole time.
Yeah, and then she was like, "Well, Monster Zero is not from this Earth. He's an extraterrestrial."
She knew the real name of Ghidorah.
Yeah, and then it's Ghidorah and
Space Godzilla question mark?
Which is really funny because his name is Ghidorah, and then at one point they have him labeled as King Ghidorah. We're just like that's just his Toho name.
That's a superlative. They're like, oh, he's the king. Let's add it to his name.
Well, King Ghidorah is the actual
Long live the
King Ghidorah is the actual like character name. Like it was Monster Zero because like I think the first his original incarnation was if I'm not mistaken, it's I'm trying to
trying to stall.
Right
wait.
No, but I think it's the original movie that Ghidorah came out was I think Godzilla versus Monster Zero. Like that was the name of the movie. So like that's the moniker that they give to him. It gets the little
and Ghidorah is the real main villain of this whole movie. It's not people. It's not Godzilla because they awake him and he doesn't give a fuck about the planet.
Oh, excuse me. Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, is the original appearance of it. Everyone has their own fucking movie. That's pretty cool. Like they all just came together in this little Justice League of Monsters.
Justice League Avengers. Again, without any like origin for each of these little monsters. But they just were like, here.
You know who they are.
And if not, Thomas Middleditch will tell you. And Ghidorah is the main
antagonist
in the movie.
He's Godzilla's most notorious, basically rival.
It's kind of weird because in this world, are these kaijus? They're from nature because in the clippings again at the end of the movie, they make it seem like they're restoring the earth, each of them in their own special way. Like there's a rainforest in the Sahara, there's an energy source in kaiju poop or something. Like it's like the kaijus are helping the earth.
Yeah, they said they release a specific radiation.
Yeah, like all of them have a specific help that they do.
Yeah. Right.
And it's interesting because then it's just like, well, Ghidorah is the one that doesn't
because he's not
add anything. Yeah. But it's also weird that he can control
other ones.
Well, I think it's just like animals where it's like, you know, they know who the biggest one is.
But they're
the biggest shtick.
It's kind of interesting to hear Doherty talk about these creatures because this movie he humanized these creatures, which is, you know, is it good, is it bad? I don't know. Like there's a lot of like you see eye movement and they're like understanding each other and being upset at each other. And they're like gods that are fighting amongst themselves.
Yeah.
And they have emotions and they have feelings and it's really weird.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting because I didn't get the original Godzillas don't really have that aspect.
Yeah.
Where they I'm the fun head, I'm the mad head of Ghidorah.
Yeah, Ghidorah's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Like, this one is kind of weird like that. I thought that it was weird that like like that one head was getting pissed at the other head. It was kind of weird.
And that was on purpose. Like Doherty talks about giving each of even the mammoth thing had its own like personality. And it was like, man, he's focusing on these monsters a lot and their like motivations and stuff. It's really interesting.
And you know how this movie ends, obviously. Godzilla wins or whatever.
Yeah.
But even at the end when like
long live
when like everyone is bowing down and Rodan comes in like, hey, I know I fought your girlfriend, but also like I was fighting you, and Godzilla gives him like that fucking stink eye, like I'm keeping my eye on you.
But you're still my buddy.
Yeah.
And then they all just go like walk away. Like it's an interesting
weird
idea.
Autobots roll out.
That to me, that scene that y'all just described is the most Godzilla-like to me because like the original ones they had moments where like the suit people they were just kind of like
Power Rangers.
You know they would there's one where like one Godzilla's dancing where he just jumps up like with joy. Where he jumps up.
Yeah, that's a gif.
There's one where he flies. You remember where he like shoots his atomic breath to the ground and he just takes off?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Just the idea of.
I kept telling people, I said, watch, Mothra's gonna attach to his back Falcon Zord style, and then that's how he's gonna do the drop kick, like.
Yeah, but instead it was King Ghidorah that does it to him and lifts him.
You know, this movie was so
that thing was fucking incredible. Godzilla looked heavy and thick.
This movie was so ridiculous when it came to stuff like that. I almost thought he was gonna do a drop kick at one point. I was like,
wouldn't that have killed the planet if you would have dropped Godzilla? Like
that's also something.
He's like a huge ass meteor. Like imagine how big Godzilla is. Like I know Ghidorah's big. But Godzilla was already fucking huge.
And also it was like, here, we're going to go above the clouds of Boston. You're in space now. And you're like, oh, fuck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Immediately already like
going jumped twice and
into
he was like,
the atmosphere. It was, but I think that's part of the thing.
Spikes
like,
first.
They saw this really cool concept art of Ghidorah with him in like the lightning of sky. They're like, let's do it. Fuck it. Like, and it's like, okay, cool. But is it something that makes sense?
Yeah, I feel like that would have destroyed Boston and like half that that East Coast there. It would have been
shit was crazy.
So and then now let's get to the fucking namesake of the movie, Godzilla.
Yeah,
Godzilla.
What did y'all think of Godzilla compared to his 2014 outing? He looks different because he's definitely
a redesign.
His spikes are there's a continuity error because at one point they show his old design like on a TV screen from Thomas Middleditch is going down the
he lost weight.
Well, it's just because his spikes in this one look like Godzilla spikes, like because they're like the Godzilla spikes have a shape, like they're not just spikes that like stick out. They have like this little like weird like triangular shape to them. And this one they kind of straight up look like that.
He looks like Reptar.
And then
from Rugrats.
And then but in the first one he has like just kind of like pokies, like they're just like the things they're just straight up lines,
like kind of realistic.
Like more realistic spikes.
Like iguanas instead of something we totally made
up. Yeah, exactly.
Here's the thing with Godzilla. Here's the thing, okay? Not much changes. I mean, other than he lights up way more. It's not like a final ditch effort for him. Like in Godzilla, the original, it was like a big ass thing when he finally does it. Like it's regular for him. But not much changes in how often we see him, really. Because we see him in the beginning.
You're totally right.
And then he goes away, just like in the original. We see a bunch of other ones fighting, and then he just comes back at the end. And like this is what he does in all his movies. He takes a nap and back.
And then so he's really cool looking, and he's got a lot of screen presence here, more so obviously than the 2014 version. It's very obvious that he has more
You got the snow fight, which is cool.
The snow fight, and then the storm fight at the very end too.
Yeah, we do get a new Godzilla because when. Again, I thought he just was going to blow up because they keep counting down. But we get his new, like, orange lava-looking Godzilla.
Burning
Godzilla form.
He's walking by shit and it's burning. And that's really cool. That's the new thing. That's the upgrade for him in this movie.
It's pretty cool. The fact... I'm going to go ahead and say my major gripe with this movie is the fact that everyone is saying that, like, these action scenes are very exciting. I'm not saying that they're not. That being said, we saw them all in the trailers.
Yeah.
And... they're not as exciting as they make it seem to be. Does that make any sense? Like, this movie still has the problem that the 2014 did, where, like, they don't linger on the monsters. That's why I told you earlier that Kong Skull Island kind of still takes the cake when it comes to, like, really cool kaiju fights, because it's the camera is on the kaiju while they're fighting. Like, Kong is fighting the skull crawler or whatever the fuck, and it's like, you see a punch. You see, like, this and that. You see it try to bite it. And this one, I mean, I guess because, like, at the very end of the day, I'm thinking of the way these monsters are designed. Like, I mean, how exciting is it if Godzilla's just trying to swipe at someone's head because he's so fat and stuff? You know what I mean? Like, so
thick.
But I don't know if you guys noticed that. Like, I feel like this movie still cut away a whole lot.
Oh, it did.
From these fights. Like, I wanted to see a lingering Mothra versus, and we did see a little bit like Mothra versus Rodan whenever they come out at the very end. But it does cut away.
That final scene has so many things, like Millie Bobbie Brown in her house and looking through rubble, and then having to run away with the orca. Like, there's a lot of human stuff going on. But you're right; it's like cut in every minute. Like the next minute, oh, this is also happening. Yeah, because you go back and there's
even the way the blocking and the editing is, like, it's so phonetic. It's just like, it's not like. To me, it's almost like, when I think about it, it's almost not satisfying. Yeah. Like, I guess when I'm watching it, I didn't notice it, but when you think about it, you're like, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing that the 2014 movie does. It's just maybe on a bigger scale. I think it tricks you more because it keeps cutting back to the monsters, but it doesn't cut back long enough for you to see what the fuck is going on. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and it's not necessary. Like, there's the team 'em up that I would say is closest to this, or a better version of this maybe, is the end of Jurassic World when the raptor and the T-Rex and then the water, like, that has like this cool thing where they're joining together and you're like, whoa, this is a new evolution, because we just saw Godzilla fight Ghidorah already, and that doesn't really happen in this. Like, it's just them fighting again. Like, it's not, there isn't like an ebb and a flow and an up and a down like regular fights. I mean, he's literally down sometimes, but it's not like there's this arc in a fight like that, like a stunt coordinator does when he does a normal fight.
I guess that's like where I was just coming from, though, because it was just like, because again, like those Kong Skull Island like fights are shot beautifully. They're shot in broad daylight. And again, like, there's slow-mo because of the way, like, Kong hit a tree against something, and you never get that sense of scope or fight in this movie, even though it's promised from all the trailers. Like, I think you do get some epic action scenes, no doubt, but I don't think that it's what was promised even, because again, like, you do cut away a whole lot, like, and it's just it's not so much that the cutting away that bothers me. I guess it's just the way it's like. The way it's just shot.
Well, and also, if it would have paid off more, I think it would have been more rewarding, because, like, there was a review before we went to go see it, and it said, like, cutting between the big scale fight back to the humans is almost laughable, because you have
it totally is, because they're so huge.
And it's like the fight for the world, like, and you keep cutting away from it,
like,
and
who cares?
Showing like, oh, mom and dad finally got back together. I'm like, shut the fuck up, Godzilla's like almost stepped on you. Get the fuck out of
and
there.
I think that may be why the big thing that happens with Vera is she kills herself, like, at the end of it.
Yeah,
and you were
long live the king, she said, and then she dies.
It's so funny. But then you're like, okay. But I just saw this insane thing, so that death doesn't like
I don't care
mean as much.
I'm like, Mothra just died.
Mothra just exploded.
She sacrificed herself Goku and Vegeta style.
I had thought that the big moment was going to be Mothra and Godzilla versus all of these kaiju that they just woke up. Like a constant barrage of stuff. But it's not. It's just a fight we saw already. Ghidorah and Rodan, which we already saw.
Yeah.
And so it's a really interesting thing that they didn't like raise the stakes in the final fight. I guess they did sort of visually or something, but it's
all they did was tell you he was an alien, and you're like, oh fuck.
things are different now.
Yeah, he's not from round here.
Yeah, but it wasn't like something incredibly new.
It wasn't, yeah. And I even think like at the end of the day, it wasn't even incredibly satisfying. I feel like because it's just like, well, it's just like because there are moments. I'm not saying, but the thing is, the moment that's just it. They're only just moments. Like there's some moments there. Like I think when Mothra, a really awesome shot.
Damn, he just stole my shit.
I told him this
2 days ago.
A really awesome shot is where Mothra comes out of the
the
clouds. What am I doing?
You stole my shit. I told you this.
Stealing
2 days
for
ago.
what? Like what did I
we
steal
weren't
it
gonna
for?
go around like to favorite parts.
Let's do our favorite parts, John. Is this your? I'm kidding. No.
Yeah. No, just
What,
kidding.
is this a Marvel movie?
Yeah. Oh, is this really?
Yeah, it is an MCU movie, a monster cinematic universe.
So that shot of Mothra coming out of the clouds, like she breaks like the darkness. Like Andrew said, like she breaks the darkness. Like because Ghidorah has darkness.
Or it's like Captain Marvel coming down in like Endgame, where it's like something's breaking through the atmosphere and it's like light between the dark and like the hope. So she literally like pierces through this fucking F5 tornado that Ghidorah has going on.
And then
the beam of light like kind of pierces. She even flaps her wings and all the clouds disappear.
Yeah, and it's really awesome. And
fucking amazing.
She goes down there and she throws the fucking jizz on
Ghidorah and then
Ghidorah to
that's
like
the only like tag team action you get. She like sticks him and then Godzilla tackles him through the building.
And it's really awesome.
Sticky because he's stuck.
It's really awesome, epic. But again, and then after that, you get like a hint of another epic moment because Rodan enters the picture, which is really cool because there's a scene where Mothra is again flying towards Ghidorah, and then there's like a shadow, like the lightning casts a shadow like of something right next to her, and it's Rodan.
Yeah.
And then you get a few seconds of fighting, and then again you just like it nothing. Like the focus goes somewhere else, and you're just kind of like, this is what we paid. Like this is what the ticket price was worth for
the whole thing leading up.
Because I feel like we've sat through like very bad dialogue and very
even just getting them there didn't like you played it on the Fenway Park speakers.
Yeah, it's nonsense. All the
I'm sure they're not
nonsense,
that loud.
all the nonsense
that
and stuff
everyone
that
around
happened,
the world heard it.
and you're kind of you're cutting away. Like it's so crazy. Like it's 2014's movie, but on a bigger level, and even almost on a more disappointing level because like at least 2014's movie isn't trying to be like this monster bash movie. I think at one point it tries to, but then it focuses back on the humans. This one's something
part
else.
of the decision, the 2014 one was like, hey, should we stop them? And they were like, no, let them fight. Like, let's get away and let's just see Godzilla save us, which like was a good story idea because they were like, should we intervene? But like, no. And it also let us just watch the fight instead of, all this other shit going down. I think there was a really cool insane stunt with the sky jumper people.
And see that
that was it, and it wasn't too difficult to like. It was a military operation. It wasn't like all this emotional shit because in this movie they're cutting from the airplanes that are helping to the people on the ground to the people watching from the big airplane to the like. It is a like shit going down everywhere. And you're right, like the focus of the finale should
be on the monsters. Yeah.
And in some places you were hoping that the humans were going to like take cues from Godzilla and fight alongside him. But that doesn't really even happen.
I mean, they kind of do, and then they're like it's very useless. Like I think Andrew says the same thing because like we were watching. There's a scene where like again another epic moment like
from the trailer
where where Ghidorah starts absorbing electricity from like a power plant.
Oh yeah,
and then literally turns into like a giant like he just basically shoots electricity everywhere.
Like a lightning rod, like
kills every pilot in the sky. Andrew's just like, what was everybody thinking?
Even before that, Rodan was like, "Let me take care of this fleet. Like you guys are done."
That's true.
I don't know why
they don't matter. Yeah,
humans don't really. I don't know why they don't get the hint. Like this isn't working.
Even the oxygen destroyer.
And and to me that doesn't make sense because the whole point of the Gareth Edwards one was them deciding they're Titans, let them fight. And we will literally just evacuate and stay away.
And this one, they're like, we can control them with the orca.
We can control with the orca.
We got the oxygen destroyer that can kill them.
Humans are more important. And that would be how cool would that moment be if this was all a metaphor for nature, for them to use the orca to try to control them. And then at some point, they can't. The orca is like, they couldn't do it.
That would have been like.
Then
awesome,
there's a message, right? You can't control nature. Like Godzilla is even more powerful than the orca.
Let them fight. Yeah.
Let them fight. But it doesn't. Even up to the end, the orca's still working. It's getting Ghidorah to come, and you're like, oh, so
these are just dumb animals.
In our weird way, like we can still control them technically.
We're more the gods than Godzilla.
I know, like we're the gods, not Godzilla.
We can control the alien that's controlling you guys.
So it is kind of this weird thing where now we're putting ourselves into this thing, because I think that's one of the cool things about Kong Skull Island was we were still mostly in the dark in Skull Island.
Right, yeah.
We were seeing it from our point of view, and they were just reacting as regular humans in that crazy situation. Like, my friend just died, fuck, or oh shit, who's this, fuck. Like, it's crazy, but that's normal. You don't need to have humans in control all the time, which in this movie I feel like they're in control
a whole lot,
even though everyone's dying and shit. Like, they still have plans on plans. They have computer projections. They have,
if people are dying, that's the thing too, is like, I guess the destruction in this movie doesn't feel because there's destruction in every kaiju movie. It's like you need to have it.
Boston's gone,
or else well, it looks like DC and the rest
is dead.
The whole thing is like, I think the world is dead. I don't know how all this like newspaper clippings or people are kind of like rebuilding, because like, didn't they just show like there's got to been at least a 2 or 3 hour window where all these monsters were wreaking havoc at the same time?
Because on the map that you see, there are a shit ton of them
everywhere. Yeah.
And it took like 5 seconds for that Mexican.
Kong is like going crazy on his island by himself, just beating his chest. Like, I wish I could fucking swim.
I've been doing this.
Where the fuck is the boat?
That's gonna be kind of good. But yeah, and that there are, because they only got the rights to these 3 for this, but all of the other ones that we talk about are probably established somewhere.
Yeah.
And we only get to see the mammoth and the new ones.
There's a Muto there, like from the first one.
There's an old design from the first one. Yeah, you remember the first one?
Yeah, there's a rejected design of a spider thingy that like was supposed to be.
I saw that. Yeah, looks a lot like the monsters alien from Gareth Edwards' Monsters, which is kind of insane.
That could have been a little nod to it.
They should have put the Cloverfield monster in there.
Fuck it up.
Fuck it.
Why not? Fuck it.
So I guess in that aspect it's just weird. I guess what I was really just
John said he hated it.
No, I actually see like those moments still kind of make the movie for me, like, which is pretty cool.
As a fan,
as a fan, that's why I guess I'm conflicted, because it's just like I really want to like the movie more. It's just there's stuff like that. And I guess just because of what we got with Kong Skull Island, like I just wanted the shots to linger a little bit more. I don't know why they didn't linger.
Well, partially too, it's we're going to talk about the box office at the end. It's not too important, but it's the part that gets people. That's the part that makes these movies financially successful, but also penetrating like the pop culture lore is the human side of the story. So if you don't get that right, then people won't care anyways. Like, if I don't know Godzilla, and if I hear from people like, I don't get what the fuck's going on, or it's just about the monsters, then why would I watch Godzilla? Like, if you like there are ways for you to introduce these humongous, insanely popular monsters without having to sacrifice, and it could just be cutting the cast in half, or maybe making it just more of a human story, because they were trying to have it every way. Let's have like this insane political drama with this eco-terrorist.
Yeah, they were trying to do the two things that we
monarch
said.
And the military.
Yeah, like, how like at the beginning we said like there's the human Godzilla, and then there's like the very like the monster-y Godzilla. This one's trying to do everything at once.
Yeah, and then but also let's have Kyle Chandler. There's a family thing, and they're going through grief,
sort of,
and there's a twist, and and they didn't just pick one side. They just decided to do all of it, because now you're like, what's monarch? Why is that important? And then meanwhile, Kyle Chandler, he's trying to find his kid, but he's also, never scared of Godzilla.
Right.
He just knows everything. Mm-hmm. So it is kind of, but the if you get that stuff right, I feel like the experience of these fights and things like that will carry through to the audience who doesn't know that much about Godzilla. And because a lot of these people are going for Millie Bobbie Brown, which we just talked about, like 1 out of 4 people are going for Millie Bobbie Brown, and they're probably the rest of them are Godzilla fans. Like, it's crazy. Because if you want to see something else, you can watch fucking Endgame a fourth time
or something. Yeah,
or Aladdin, which is kind of crazy. I want to bring up a couple of things about Mike Doherty, the director.
Mike Doherty.
I know we just talked about a lot of crazy stuff about the movie, but he's a really good guy.
Mike Doherty used to be a screenwriter. Yeah, he wrote. He used to be
superhero movies.
He used to be Bryan Singer's screenwriter, actually.
Yeah, X-Men. But he also made Trick or Treat. So there you go.
And Krampus.
And Krampus recently. So a really cool thing that happened in this movie. Let's talk about that later. We'll talk about this monster universe in the sequel part of the movie. But on set, William Friedkin, the guy who directed The Exorcist, in order to get good scares on camera, you know what he would do?
scare them on camera.
He would fire a gun in the air.
There you go.
So you get real jolts from them. And Doherty did kind of something similar. He had a bullhorn with all of the sounds of the different monsters. Godzilla, and he would be filming a scene, and he would just, play them, and the actors would have to react.
They wouldn't tell them.
Without telling them, and they would just react to the different monsters, which was really cool. That's a big thing too that actors do now is like they're triggered by music, which is interesting. So Millie Bobbie Brown and Vera Farmiga, like they would do the Baz Luhrmann thing. They would play sad music,
right? Yeah, and then
that's when there was time for them to be sad, which is really neat. Yeah, that was cool.
Just a fucking violin.
I mean, I tried to glean as much big things as I could from the pod because he sounds like a really interesting director.
Mike Doherty, like he's a really. I mean, I don't know. This is an interesting experiment for what he's been given because I don't. Again, the jury's out on whether or not this is a good movie or not. But like, I think
it could have been much worse because it's not like the Godzilla versus Megalyn movie that we used to watch as a kid. Like you can watch that and you're like, this is by no means a good movie.
Right,
entertaining, yeah.
But like Mike Doherty is like, I mean, you've seen Trick or Treat, right? And then I guess you've seen Dolphins. You've seen Trick or Treat. Oh, you haven't seen Trick or Treat? Well, Andrew's seen.
No, fuck you.
You've seen Krampus, Andrew. And
I saw Krampus.
How was Krampus? Like compared?
Krampus I think this movie.
Yeah,
I thought it was fun, really? But
it is a meld of the kind of similar things, like really dark themes, but with funny stuff.
I don't think it was a good movie, but I don't think it was a bad movie. The same thing as
isn't it like a PG-13 horror movie? That's like something that you don't get too often.
Scott.
It's kind of crazy.
There's a lot of bad words in it, but yeah, it is kind of silly. I mean, it is silly.
Like I would. It's like I don't know.
It's a fun movie to watch. But I mean, it's
double feature Christmas, Gremlins, and that one. You're welcome.
I mean, it's like teddy bear, like evil teddy bears are in. Like it's a very
like Goosebumps.
Yeah, it's like a Goosebumps episode.
Yeah, but like Michael Doherty, I mean, he seems like he'd be a really good director.
I think his heart is in the right place.
Yeah,
I don't think he needs to adjust much of what he's doing.
This is definitely like his fans' love letter.
Oh yeah,
like a love letter to Godzilla.
He's an uber fan for Godzilla. He was saying that up until like the release date, they were adding more Godzilla things into this movie.
Love it.
Including like the credits stuff, like the things in the credits that they were adding. And one of the weird things for me, and I don't know if I would ever do this, but he was like, yeah, the cool thing is we put, which you could tell, everything's a green screen on all the computer screens and all the TVs. He was like, yeah, we were adding things last minute to those screens. And then he's like, that's what's really cool about the movie. I'm like, that's cool. But that's also kind of...
It's a little excessive.
Insane to be like, oh, let's put like a ton of Easter eggs in the screen back there.
Because there are a ton of like, I think Drew, you said, I wasn't bothered by him, but I get it now in retrospect when you think about him, but I think Drew was like annoyed by the amount of Kong references in this movie.
A little bit. I was like, I get it already. Like,
it was. I mean, again, it just goes to this theme of like, we have to tell the audience. Like people are like, guys, we should tell the audience.
Like, don't forget, Kong's on an island somewhere by himself.
And then look at the camera and be like...
Yeah,
we're in pre-production.
I was like, enough. This is a Godzilla movie. Fuck.
It is a lot of reference to Kong and never seeing him ever.
Never seeing him at all. You see him walk back, but that's footage from Skull Island.
And he's even like the Skull Island is the last shot of this movie. Like the last actual shot of this movie is Skull Island.
Skull Island, yeah.
Like just going through Skull Island. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fuck. But I will say this about this MCU. Well, let's talk about this monster cinematic. I don't know what they're calling it.
Monsterverse.
The Monsterverse? Okay.
The Dark Universe.
I'm going to go through this list. And because in this interview, they were like, all right, do you guys hang out and stuff? And he's like, we actually do. And he's like, we're kind of building this fraternity of...
universe.
Like, it's kind of weird to think about, but they're all, of course, white men. But they're all, similar filmmakers because they came from this indie horror.
I love how you say, of course.
Well, I mean, it's still Hollywood.
Yeah.
I mean, are we surprised, everyone? But it's Gareth Edwards, who is really the ringleader of this whole thing.
Right, yeah.
And I think
One.
He's the most prolific of these filmmakers, probably. Gareth Edwards.
Okay.
Because, I mean, Godzilla, Star Wars... Not a bad start.
You're just like
Jordan Voight Roberts, 34, who I still think made one of the better. Like Kong Skull Island was really good.
He's working on Metal Gear. I'm excited.
It's in retrospect, that's probably the best movie of this Monsterverse.
I gotta say, yeah, because I
Kong
also
Skull Island, yeah.
just overall I love that it was set in this apocalypse now type of.
It's a very cynical
world.
movie when you think about it too.
Fucking Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson, like what the fuck?
It's a very
on?
Tom Hiddleston.
It's a nihilistic movie. Yeah. Like characters die because
characters
remember, die off like in the most horrific way.
Yeah, this guy tries to suicide bomb one of the things, and then the thing like just hits him with his tail and like get away away from me. You got bombs.
And the dude who's like writing to his wife, or like,
it's a very nihilistic.
That's the guy that's gonna die.
It's a very nihilistic movie. And,
but it's so good.
Weird. Yeah,
it's like it's really good.
Yeah.
Dong.
And it honestly is matched in the critic score with Godzilla because it's really good.
Yeah.
Of course, with Michael Dougherty we talked about. Then Adam Wingard, who is making Kong.
That's
kind of scary.
Godzilla versus Kong is the. Go on and talk about most of the directors.
So these are the directors. So they do talk to each other. They do hang out. Gareth brought his sense of realism and his scale, because that was really unique to the first Godzilla movie, was the scale of Godzilla.
And the groundedness and the
realism. Being brought in. Apparently, Jordan Vogt-Roberts was really fantastic when it comes to visual effects.
Because so good.
Definitely.
It really, I mean, even just the color. And think about this. The Kong Skull Island was mostly a daytime movie.
Right, yeah.
We already talked about snow and rain and shit in this movie.
Storms, yeah.
Godzilla, the first one, is also like heavily fog. Like, it's a lot of like dark, like, don't light it too much.
Clear as fucking day.
And Kong Skull Island's like, and not
it's
only
like,
that.
Here's Kong in the sun, like the very first shot of like him in the sun.
Doesn't it look good?
Yeah.
Right? Like and so he brought that to the table. So it's cool that they're all working together to build this monster verse. And it's actually neat that it's around, because monster movies aren't that common.
They're not in abundance.
Oh, they won't be. I mean, whenever we talk about these,
after this
office,
next one, we're done.
Over, baby. But yeah. So there's this monster verse that's being built. Are you guys excited? Like, do you want more? Do you guys have a specific monster that you want to see?
I'll let Drew talk first. Actually,
I think I'm always kind of down. I don't know. It's I think that's the way a lot of the movies are nowadays, with our generation being the more dominant one. In the world now, where like they play on a lot of our nostalgia. I don't even think that was the case with the generation before us, but that's why you still get movies like this, and you get, I mean, like Aladdin and Godzilla are in theaters. Like, what year is it? You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna have Lion King in the theaters, Men in Black.
This year's insane.
These franchises that are like that have continued since we were young, and that's what they're playing on. But yeah, I still love it, so I think I would like to see it continue. I hope at least people will have fun visually, because that's what I liked about this movie for sure.
I think honestly, I know Godzilla and I know Kong, and if we're talking about Godzilla versus Kong, that may actually work out better than
this one.
Because this was like, I know two of the monsters, or three of the monsters, but then also they're like brought more, and you're like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. Yeah. And this is like, we already compared it to Justice League and Avengers, but it is kind of that similar thing of like, should we be excited that they're in this movie together? And if this is the first time we're seeing them, the answer is like, I don't know, like, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
And if this wasn't, like, we saw Kong Skull Island, we saw Godzilla, and it's kind of like, okay, like, I'm interested in seeing
that's the slow burn.
The mesh.
Like, that's the actual slow burn.
They're both very different, for sure.
I feel like
one's more human than the other one, literally.
I feel like Kong's smarter.
That's what I was telling John. I said that's going to give him the advantage, because I think he's going to be about a third of Godzilla's size, because Godzilla's just so fucking huge. Mm-hmm. Even though in Kong they said that he wasn't done growing. So he can grow a little bit bigger, but
and honestly, he's big in Kong too.
Well, and also like you can see him like swinging throughout the like city and like running and like dodging, like because Godzilla's so slow that I can see him climbing Godzilla's spikes and like breaking a whole bunch of them off. Yeah,
and Godzilla has
using
all these
tools and stuff.
His powers don't mean shit if he can't like aim or something.
Yeah, exactly. So like that when he went atomic in this one, or when he what is it, burning Godzilla?
Yeah,
that was like once in a lifetime shit.
True.
Like who else is gonna hit him with a nuke?
I know he could kill Kong like in 5 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you guys be okay with a death, like an actual death to one of these?
And I think
like
there should be. I think there should be a winner.
I think there's some finality to that if it did happen, which would make it cool.
No, I think that's why there's a post-credit scene in this one, and I think that's what they're building up towards, is that like some sort of mecha Ghidorah. And so I think like there'll be a clear winner. Like they'll get their punches. Like Godzilla will knock him down and King Kong will knock him down. But it's an American movie. King Kong's gonna win, because not only did he come first, but he's American made. Yeah. And
but Kong is destined to die almost every time.
Well, but look at the
but he's not king yet. So
look at the title.
So
King Ghidorah. So King Ghidorah was dethroned by Godzilla, who's the king of the monsters, and now Kong is just Kong, and he's gonna dethrone Godzilla for the title of King Kong.
And then Donkey.
Yeah, exactly.
Kong.
Donkey King.
Donkey. We're making waffles. But John, what are you excited for? What do you want to see in this MCU?
So first off, Godzilla versus Kong. I have mixed reactions to that just because in general the title sounds. I mean, it's because
of the filmmaker making it.
Yeah, because the filmmaker making it.
Adam
Wingard is. We were talking about the script about this being very cheesy and stuff like that. I don't know if anyone's seen an Adam Wingard movie.
But don't.
No. It's not that it's bad. Fired. No, Adam Wingard has some really cool skills.
List off some of those movies for people.
Script writing is not one of them. Blair Witch, the remake Blair Witch. Or the sequel Blair Witch.
Yeah, you're talking about Drone Blair Witch?
Yeah, Drone Blair Witch. There's
Drone.
The Guest, which is actually not bad, but
That's
again,
a good movie.
But when you watch the movie, like the way dialogue, like people talk in that movie, they don't talk like that in real life. Like it's a very idealized, like hipster, young 20-something version of Adam Wingard's version basically of how people talk or act. Because like people are spouting off almost Eli Roth like dialogue. They're talking like, shut the fuck up, you slut, and this and that, and you're just like, people don't talk
Godzilla's
like that in real life.
The bear Jew.
This thing isn't set. This isn't set at Southwest High School, so no one fucking talks like that.
Now people know where you went, John.
Oh, it's a piece of shit place. Yeah, you can go for it.
Boom.
They're sponsors.
Oh, cool. Anyway, so Adam Wingard. It doesn't get me excited. The Death Note movie I did like. That being said, I mean, when you watch the Death Note movie, it's more or less like an Adam Wingard movie.
Willem Dafoe carries that bitch.
So but there's like a scene where like the girl says something. It's like, what do you expect? I'm a fucking like fuck up or something. And you're just like, what am I like? You're trying to write like some Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind dialogue shit, and it's just like completely missing the mark. So I think like Adam Wingard. I don't know how that script's gonna be. But that being said, I think he has a really cool visual flair, and he's this is going to be his first like huge budget movie, so I'm excited to see what he does with it because there is something about his movies that are kind of very planned out. Because Wingard's approach to filmmaking, like the way he approached Blair Witch, even though that kind of it fell flat. The way he approached Blair Witch was like he kind of mapped out every single beat, like every single scare that was going to happen. And then, like, basically, thought about what it was going to do to the audience. So he's taking that influence and, like, applying it to Godzilla vs. Kong. So I'm excited to see what he does with that. That being said, he, maybe about a year ago before, production really started on this movie, he was listing off his 5 favorite Godzilla movies that he was taking off to influence for this one, for Godzilla vs. Kong. And they're all those 5 movies that he listed were, like, to me, kind of the worst Godzilla movies. Like they're very, very cheesy and very, very
1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
No, it was stuff like Godzilla versus the Smog Monster, that's the one where he like flies and stuff like he's influencing what the most ridiculous movies basically are influencing Godzilla versus Kong.
The only thing I'll say about that is the Smog Monster. I think there was a Godzilla where the TV was eating everyone's brain. Like there's a lot of the Smog Monster happened after there was an actual smog. People were dying from smog in Japan.
Right.
So it was like a very direct, like, oh, let's make a monster like this.
Desolation.
And I kind of hope...
That's like exploitation now.
It is. And I kind of hope that these new movies are actually about, like, the monsters actually are something. Does that make sense? Because then it'll add something more than just us watching monsters
like
fight.
A giant racist monster or something.
I mean, hey, I'll vote for him.
A giant wall monster.
But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's something similar to what these monsters represented when Toho was making them, then it would kind of make these more unique. Because something that, I mean, I talk about Pacific Rim, but something that Pacific Rim did was really show everyone, like, hey, monster movies can just be monster movies. You don't need...
any type of like subtext.
You don't need subtext. So I think what's unique to Godzilla is they have this whole catalog of monsters that are referencing something real, or even if it's like subtext, or even if it's like subconscious, then people will maybe attach themselves to these things a little bit more. For people who aren't like fans of Godzilla, because then they'll be like, oh, I get it. Yeah. And like layers, I think we talk about layers a lot, but like having something more than just computer screams and people talking.
I mean, I hope Wingard takes that message.
We'll see.
Because if anyone wouldn't do that, it'd probably be him.
Oh, okay.
That's just
Shots
me, though.
Fired.
It's
Shots
not.
Fired.
See, like I feel like, I mean, goddamn, it's so conflicting because I love The Guest. The Guest is an actual really cool movie. Again, but you wouldn't necessarily, think that the guy directing that would make a Godzilla movie.
Damn.
And if he did, you would see how he made it. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like the way like if shit, I don't know.
Wingard, John wants to fight you in the street.
No, I'm just saying like fucking like Roland Emmerich. Like Roland Emmerich is a fine filmmaker. That being said, when you walk into a Roland Emmerich movie, you know what you're getting.
He should make a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, that guy's like.
Didn't he make it? Who made?
He did
Roderick?
actually.
1998.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, he did make a Godzilla movie.
I was like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
John, your point is just fucked.
So I'm a. Fucking hell. No, you're the one who said he should make a Godzilla movie.
You're definitely right though. The like going from Gareth Edwards and like down from each Godzilla movie, it feels like the talent is kind of like I'm not gonna say bad but it does go down.
Legendary did calculate that these movies would make less and less over time.
Really?
So they are like the budgets aren't building because
that's
they knew,
a bad thing though.
Well, because they also factored in one of the reasons that made the first Godzilla movie so big was this kind of let's see if it bombs kind of audience that went because they just didn't know. No, like we haven't seen a new Godzilla
in like 20 years.
So a lot of people went to just see what it was going to be like.
Yeah.
I mean and so they knew that because a lot of their movies have lost about 49% of profit, like sequels, from the first time.
Pacific Rim 2,
because that's kind of like. I don't know why.
That's their thing.
That's their thing. Is to lose half of the money. So it'll be interesting. I mean, we could talk a little bit about, since we're close to wrapping up, about this movie. Like the budget is over $200 million.
Probably like I think it's movie. Like they said like the safe one was like the lowest it had to be was probably 180.
Yeah.
Right now it doesn't seem like it's doing too well in theaters.
It's made worldwide. It's made over 100 million,
something,
which is good.
Yeah, like that.
But I mean, another movie's coming out next week, and then no next week.
X-Men.
So. Yeah. That's true. Dark Phoenix.
Wait, hold on.
Dark Phoenix. It might still stand a chance, actually.
Yeah. Now that you say it, it might still. I mean, maybe.
This week, 2 other movies premiered: Rocket Man and Ma, and they did well. Like they didn't. It's not like Godzilla sucked the air out of every other movie.
No.
Those 2 movies did well. Aladdin came out last week, and it fucked Booksmart and every other movie.
Well, and it's just like
it just took everything.
It's just a really good lineup at the movies right now with Brightburn and Aladdin, and you're gonna get Spider-Man. And
but the pressure is on
to get Toy Story
because
and
of that,
Dark
though,
Phoenix, and
because of that, though, the pressure is on to make all your fucking big money on your first weekend.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I don't think Godzilla's doing it.
Legendary is also exploring making this Godzilla world, the MCU, kind of exploring it not in a movie, but like maybe to a TV series type thing, which is interesting.
You can start getting back into rubber suits.
I mean, there's fucking Monarch. Monarch has been doing shit for like years, and we don't know what the fuck. But suddenly, like we get these jumps in Monarch. We found a monster. Hey, we tracked all of them. And you're like, what? What happened?
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
done.
Yeah, we built things around everything. There's a site, we named them all.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, whoa,
it's really funny because in 2014,
you got that shit on lock.
In 2014, you got the impression that they were like kind of like searching for it, and like
secret
like
organization,
like a crackpot organization or something like that.
Yeah, and in 5 years,
yeah, and in 5 years they have like the entire globe like just mapped out.
We got it
like,
figured
with
out,
all these
baby.
Monsters.
We know how to control them with the work.
I know we built an orca.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird because I was like, again, like I think the general audience, if you don't really like Godzilla, this movie really isn't for you because there's really nothing to take away from it other than just like loudness in general.
Noises.
Yeah.
So John, do you want to say your final thoughts on it? I think you're already doing it.
Oh, well, my final thoughts on King of Monsters. I liked it. I mean, it sounds like I didn't like the reason I have those gripes is because like I'm a huge.
I totally not the answer. I didn't think
you're like Vera Farmiga in this movie.
Well, it's the thing is like it's weird though because it feels like you guys or like at least Drew is like I'm not allowed to criticize the movie if I don't like it.
No.
But the thing is, I criticize it because I like it. It's the same thing why I hate like some of these DC movies because like they have the potential to be so fucking good and they're not. The same thing goes for like this movie.
You want to release the Doherty cut?
Release the Doherty cut. Release the Edwards cut. No, it was really fun for what it is. Like I said, if you're a huge Godzilla fan like me, the moments of joy that you get seeing these monsters fully rendered in like CG and like very, very like very slick looking design is awesome. Like there's nothing that compares to that, and I think this movie is everything that I wanted as a child. It's basically like it's a big budget Godzilla movie with Mothra, with Rodan, and with King Ghidorah. So like when Drew said that, he wanted more movies like this, I obviously want more. If it does end at Godzilla versus Kong, then I think I would be satisfied because you got it already. You know what I mean? Like, how do you top a movie where what's next? Like, do all the monsters fight like in a giant like battle royale?
It's kind of weird because we kind of saw that here. Does that make sense? Like
Final Wars.
They went straight to like their best.
Like I was exactly
right
like I thought like I would say like a Godzilla versus Kong idea would be before this. Like if I were in charge of this, like that would be before what we just saw. Because like bringing all these Toho monsters, that's the draw. Like Kong, I guess that's cool. Like it's I don't know why like the necessity it is to pair up Godzilla and Kong. That came from like an old movie called King Kong versus Godzilla because Toho adopted their own version of King Kong.
And what's the harm in making like $100 million Mothra movie?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like
make that money back.
Like, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. So I do want to see more. That being said, I would be very satisfied if this was the ending, or if Godzilla vs. Kong was the end.
Yeah.
But the King of the Monsters movie it's something I'm definitely going to own when it comes out on video. It's in ways it does trump the 2014 movie, and in ways it doesn't.
What if you were ranking them? Would you put Kong number 1, or would you put Gareth's number 1? Because you're not going to put this one number 1, are you?
So, no, I'm not going to put this one at number 1, obviously.
It's probably number 3.
Damn.
Yeah, I guess it would be number 3. And it's the weird thing is, like, I don't know. I guess, like, Gareth Edwards is Kong still... It's only because, like, I would make a movie like Gareth Edwards. Like, I would make it very human-centric. I would probably have more, more fan service Godzilla moments than Edwards did. But that's just for me being, like, me being me and Edwards being Edwards.
You would have the fairies singing and dancing.
Sure, yeah, like something like that. I would just, but the thing is like, and I wouldn't like try to. I don't know why everyone tries to. I guess that's the whole point of like making a movie like this, like try to tie it into the bigger thing that's going on. Even Wingard says that like when he's writing the script for Godzilla vs. Kong, he says like he's trying to make the humans the central part of the story and this and that. I think I would put like Edwards' movie just a slight above Kong Skull Island just because of the way the effect it was, like, it had on me, like, and just like seeing something like that.
It reshaped the world.
Yeah. And I just think like that one is a very cool American serious take on Godzilla. Like I think it's pretty until the end, because the end it does become monster fighting again.
But it is kind of like a natural disaster movie almost.
Yeah, it is.
Which is cool. Like we don't know what it is and we don't know why it's
there's shots of like people like needing help, and like there's an aftermath of a tsunami, which is like kind of terrifying because like that stuff happens in real life.
And then just the sequences in the Gareth Edwards moment were so good, not just because of the scope and your point, but do you remember the bridge sequence where they're on a school bus and Godzilla's like, well, that's just like,
and
you're like,
monorail.
fuck, like, and you're like, what's happened? The monorail was really scary as shit. Like, there's so many good,
it's
just like
the
sequences.
The moments of all their like trump the moments in
Trump.
in King of the Monsters,
and it basically was just two of them trying to fuck, right? Those moments happen.
They make fun of it in King of the Monsters.
It happens without fighting. Like you get a fight at the end, and you get another one like kind of in the middle. But all of those moments were like just awestruck was just in seeing them. Yeah, and they're just like crossing the street.
I wish the casting would have been a little better in that one, just a bit.
You have a thing against Aaron Taylor Johnson?
I don't actually.
He's gonna beat you up. He's gonna kick your ass too.
I mean, Drew and I watched the Godzilla 2014 movie, and then like before we got to the final scene, like I think I turned to Drew and I was like, I feel like this movie's been on for a long time, and it's the same thing. It's because I think you're watching like, I mean, it shouldn't drag, but it does.
Too many humans.
Skull Island gets a nod below Godzilla because there is some cheese to it. It's not as much cheese as King of the Monsters. Don't get me wrong, but there is some like very self-awareness in that one that the Edwards movie does not have, because like there is a very self-aware feeling that I feel like Doherty obviously adopted in this movie, because this movie is super duper self-aware.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy King of the Monsters. It's probably as far as spectacle, it's the best thing America's ever produced. As far as like
fuck?
No, like kaiju wise.
Oh, okay. I was like, Gone with the Wind was good. And Wizard of Oz was pretty good too. Damn, fuck.
As far as
this
kaiju,
is better than all the
spectacle kaiju.
Star Wars. Fuck, John.
Kaiju wise, and I think specific to Godzilla wise, it's probably the best thing that America has produced when it comes to like actiony monsters and stuff.
Sure.
So it's been pretty cool. Yeah. I know. I had to think about that too because I was like, I like the first Pacific Rim movie. The first Pacific Rim movie by Del Toro was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. And I mean, and that
when it comes to kaiju stuff. But like, yeah, I enjoyed this. I would recommend any Godzilla fan go see it. If you're not, and you're
watch it
and your son is or something like that, I would still see it with them. It's weird. I can't.
What are these scenarios you're making up? If you're a teacher and like you have 4 kids, but they want to see it, and
then you want to see Aladdin, go see Aladdin.
You know?
Just like, but no, I think people should catch this at a matinee. There you go. Like I can't.
I did.
I just can't recommend. Like I can't strongly recommend it because like this is literally a divisive movie, and I feel like all the positive reactions we're getting right now online are from fans. So yeah,
I think if you're a Godzilla fan, go watch it in IMAX. There you go.
That's true.
That'll fix it for you, and it's going to be all sorts of fucking epic, and you're going to love it, and that's it.
Yeah, that's
basically it. You will love it as a Godzilla fan, like 100%. Because again, like you've seen, like some of the Godzilla movies back then, like are shit. Like you can watch them, and there's no way there was ever getting considered for any type of award ever.
And they probably had like a 100th of the budget of this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So like if you like that stuff and you still put that stuff on, you're gonna like this movie for sure.
It has twins.
Yeah, the twins.
There's so many references to the like every
every single thing is like a reference.
I don't know if you noticed in the credits, but it was like Godzilla appearing as himself.
Yeah, Mothra herself.
Mm-hmm. If you look at the names, apparently there's a thing that Doherty did. The names of the people who wrote the articles of the things that you see are important.
Yeah, they're probably like crew members or something like
from like the old guys. Like there's so many little things. There's probably a whole list of 50 Easter eggs.
At the very end of the credits, they straight up put a picture of the dude who was in the original suit.
Oh yeah,
remember?
That's true.
R.I.P.
He was is dedicated to, and I apologize to his family. I guess if I'm watching his name.
He's about to butcher his name.
Haro Nakajima. Haru Nakajima. No, I pronounced that right. I think
maybe. Yeah, John's like I got it.
Yoshimitsu Bano.
Oh, you should just stop.
Which is a producer. Yeah, the movie's dedicated to them because, like, you know, the guy in the suit, the original guy in the suit, died in 2017, which was Nakajima.
That's really recently.
And so yeah, I think I at my screening, people clapped when they saw that because, like, you know, the classic theme is playing, which we didn't even talk about the score.
Of course,
the score is probably one of the best things about this movie. Until you get to the Blue Oyster Cult fucking...
The trailer had "I'm Gonna Knock You Out" by Cool J. I'm down.
That is not in this movie.
I'm gonna knock you out.
It is this movie is definitely a lot of things for the fans who have watched the old movies and read. I think they're comic books, right?
There's lots of comic books.
Oh yeah, Godzilla in Hell. There's no
Godzilla
dialogue.
in Hell is a good.
No
comic.
dialogue,
and they're from Legend. Some of them are from Legendary. Like they're part of the.
Some of them are. I think the movie ones are, but like not the other ones.
Prequel.
The IDW does the other, right or no?
Yeah.
The main Godzilla comics.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in these movies for you to enjoy, and if you just want to see a really and I mean, like if you like those big
popcorn
disaster,
movies.
kind of movies. Watch it.
If you like the Fast and the Furious movies, this is gonna be right up your alley.
Exactly.
Yeah,
this
is
definitely like this is pure popcorn.
Did you watch The Mummy?
Movie.
Not as good characters as Fast and the Furious, but you know,
no,
maybe.
Sadly,
there's more.
I was like, maybe.
There's like 30 more people in this movie than in Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, I mean, it's just kind of this thing where it's definitely not a great movie, but
it's not a bad movie either, though.
Yeah, like
I mean,
if you
not like a crazy bad movie.
Yeah, watch it. Maybe you can follow it.
I mean, I'm still gonna buy it on Blu-ray.
That's what I said. I was like, I'll still own it, but I think that's. I don't know if that's my fan. I don't know if that's my fandom talking or if that's like an actual fan.
I will say this though: we are kind of in this golden age of genre movies that they're letting people like Adam Wingard and Doherty and Gareth Edwards make like insane movies. Not only is horror doing really well right now,
that's totally
but
true. Yeah.
like these movies are.
Sandberg did Shazam and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're getting all these fucking.
Iconic
like Marvel movies,
properties, like getting.
Can you imagine? Like this is fucking insane. Star Wars still is around.
You guys should revel in it because I feel like this is definitely a bubble and it's gonna pop.
Well, and when the next generation replaces us, and there's another there's a Fortnite movie, or some shit.
This is a whole other podcast. Is like which of the big IPs have probably already put their little tentacles around the kids of this generation to where it'll continue further. I mean, I think
not this one.
I think Marvel for sure.
Marvel, yeah.
But which of the ones are just like Jurassic World? Is it just for the people who like Jurassic World, or are they like planting seeds in these kids who are like, I like dinosaurs now? to be, because that's what got us to go back to see Jurassic World.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's another conversation, another podcast. Be like, which of these franchises are playing the long game, and which are like, oh, this was good in the '80s. Let's do this again. Like, let's do Terminator again.
Oh yeah, fucking.
Because then like, there's no new audience for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy.
I don't know. That's another pod. Oh, what do you guys have to plug? This is a long one. This is 2 hours.
This was a pretty good one. I think
we
got
so
really
long.
Into it. Yeah,
it's longer, almost as long as the movie.
It's not as cold outside because it's long.
Oh, I was like, what are you talking about?
I get it. Yeah, I was like, I just lost it.
Penis joke. God.
Listen to all your Duff and Pod podcasts, which are on the Duff and Pod network. You can find them wherever you download podcasts. Listen to your Sticker Fridge podcast as well. Stickerfridge.com's got some exciting stuff there. There is some articles that people are writing. Go listen to our crossover with Director Showdown, which is really awesome. You got some really 2 unique episodes there. You have an ROTS episode hosted by Adam and Brent, who talk about Paul Blart 2. Terribly exciting, I know, but when you listen to it, it's actually pretty awesome. And then we take over Director Showdown and talk about Ed Wood and A Simple Favor, which is pretty cool. Other than that, just keep listening for this. We're probably going to have some exciting stuff pretty soon.
Lots of good sequels coming out soon. Lots of good ones.
You're going to hear Andrew's voice a lot more on some shows.
Oh, maybe. On a very specific show.
Yeah, we got to quit one of my 12 jobs now. You're welcome. Yeah, come down to the first priority, the comic shop.
You have Godzilla stuff, right?
Yeah, Godzilla comics. There are 2 prequels. There's one that predates the 2014 one, where it shows you the death of that first Godzilla that they find the bones of. So it's kind of cool because you kind of think it's like, oh, this is the Godzilla that survives, and then he dies, and you're like, oh, that was so sad.
Is there anything that covers when all of the Kongs were alive at some point?
There is a Kong Skull Island graphic novel.
That's
yes,
I
sold the last one today, and I was at the shop. And this is what's really cool is like my ears are literally to the ground. Like I get the people's first reactions and a ton of people being in a movie theater and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see a lot of that firsthand. And all the reaction for Godzilla has been super positive.
Yeah, people generally like it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, come down to the comic shop. I can hook you up with some other Godzilla stories. Again, there's one where he goes to hell and he there's no talking because there's no humans.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I actually like that comic a lot.
It's still really awesome. Cool. And he walks out of hell like a boss. He's like, fuck that.
He destroys like some giant demon. Like it's so fucking. He's just walking through hell.
Yeah, it sounds as cool as you think, and
that's crazy.
It's got fighting
very
everything.
Crazy imagery too. There's no talking at all in this thing.
Yeah, pretty awesome.
He walks through like a pool of like dead souls that are trying to climb up on him, and he just like uses the atomic breath to just like toast him.
Yeah, and he has crossovers also. So if you like that stuff, come on down.
Well, listen to all the shows. Go to patreon.com/DelvinPod if you like it, and review the pod and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Bye.
Later.